Stuff's falling. There we go. Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru on a nice summer's day. Right here, or right there, wherever you are. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. We have a trip around the world today, and your questions with this man, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
How do you know it's a nice day? Could be a shitty day where some people are. Some people could be hunkered down in the tornado bunkers. And you never know. They could be in the middle of a potato famine. You never know what's going on. You don't just make blanket statements assuming everybody around the world is just as bippy and cheery as you are. That started out sounding like a funeral and ended up sounding like a soundtrack to the Chipmunks Go to Japan.
I'm working on my silent film. I'm working on my silent film, so I have been working on different emotions.
You should work more on being silent. How about them apples? You like apples? How about them apples? I'm going to tell you what here, just right now today, I'm in no mood to brook any tomfoolery, to quote the great Luthez, about anything here today, because we're gonna be serious here. I gave you some homework. When we talked last. I said, make sure you see, did you watch the General Lee jump the fountain in Somerset, Kentucky?
Oh, no, I actually didn't. I forgot about that.
Oh, you know good. Sorry, sack of fertilizer, you.
I think the thing that triggered the conversation about that specific thing, that was stuck on my mind, so I kind of went down that road instead of the road of the frivolous fun of whatever it is you're talking about. What in the world
are you? Well, all roads lead to Somerset, Kentucky. When the General Lee is, no, you got to Google it right now. Okay. I want to get your live on-air reaction.
Hold on.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, they had a big affair, a festival of some description down in Somerset, Kentucky, and as part of the festivities, they blocked off the entire main street down through town for it looked like several blocks and put concrete barricades up in front of the businesses and had the General Lee drive at a high rate of speed down Main Street or whatever and jump the goddamn fountain in the town square and then land on the other side. A semblance of landing. Have you found this yet, Mr. Lass?
I have indeed found it. Hold on. I'll give you some background audio if that proves it. Hold on. Is that a blue fountain?
Yes. They went all out.
Oh! Let me see from this angle.
Yeah.
It's a compilation of different angles that this was filmed at. All right, I think I've gotten the gist of this. The General Lee.
Yes. And
no Daisy Duke, but General.
The fountain was all blue and everything, and he goes through the top of the fountain, and it blitzes the water everywhere, and people were all, oh! And then he landed on the other side, and I think besides one of the doors falling off, he skidded to the left and ended up in one of those concrete barriers before he went into Aunt Fanny's thrift store and Sunday shop. But that's the way you do it down in Kentucky, down in Eastern Kentucky there.
Yes, you honor the Dukes of Hazzard. That's what you
Yes, I just said the General Lee. I assume everybody knows that's the car from the Dukes of Hazzard. But in the TV show, it was Hazzard with 2 Z's, and Hazzard, Kentucky only has 1 Z. And I guarantee you, back in those days, what was the blonde Duke's name? The blonde one?
Not Tom Wopat, the other one.
The other guy, if he'd have walked down the street in Hazzard, Kentucky back in them days, somebody would have done inappropriate things to him that we're not allowed to talk about on the air at this particular time in society.
You heard it from Kentucky's biggest ambassador right here. Some nice
right there. I'll tell you what, he wouldn't have made it a century, just that he had all of his teeth.
Do you remember what triggered this conversation? What I referenced earlier. What triggered us talking about the General Lee off air?
Just to get you off of playing the organ. No, I just mentioned it because I just seen the clip.
It was Kentucky News, because I told you there was a Kentucky News story, and you said, was it the General Lee? And I said,
that's
no,
right.
It's about a loving couple that apparently was holding hands when the tornado hit and their arms got ripped off.
Yes. And that was, went in a completely different direction than where I was going with this fun fountain jumping story of a Confederate sports car. But yeah, and I said, well, that had to be down in Laurel County. And you looked it up, London. Yep, there you go. That was where they had the big one last month that killed 17 people.
The General Lee thing, is that like when WrestleMania comes to Vegas, all the wrestling conventions and all the vendors show up? Like, if you sell Dukes of Hazzard merch, do you have to be there?
Oh yes, I mean it's a happening. Not only you got worlds intersecting. You got the car fans, because that's one of the classic cars. With the Batmobile and whatever the fuck else is at these shows. You got the General Lee, and then you've got the classic TV fans. 70s and 80s Dukes of Hazzard TV fans, and then you've got rednecks of all descriptions. And they all converge and have the General Lee signs autographs. Yeah, actually, they what they do is they lay down for $50. They lay down in front of it, and the guy runs over them, leave tire tracks.
See, I'd be trying to, if I was promoting that event, I would be trying to do some interesting things, like get Lawler with his Batmobile and have a race.
Oh, I don't know if. I said, this fucking General Lee that jumped the goddamn fountain, it looked like it could go. I don't know if Lawler's Batmobile was for go or for show. He drove it down the goddamn. I was at a Comic-Con with him one time in Memphis, and he drove it from his house, wherever the fuck it was. I'm trying to think where the convention was. Anyway, it was a ballroom and a convention area at a hotel in suburban Memphis. And he drove the Batmobile, he and his significant other at the time. May still, I don't know what his romantic, I'm not trying to break him up on the air. I don't know what his status is these days, but the point being, they're in the fucking Batmobile. It doesn't have license plates on it. And the fucking cops see a goddamn Batmobile with no license plates and pull him over. But then they see it's Lawler, and they gave him a goddamn police escort the rest of the way to the comic convention, where I was 2 booths down from him. And he's sitting beside the Batmobile on the floor of the thing, and the Batmobile plays the Batman theme song. Over and over, like every minute and a half, it loops again.
Yeah, it's a short
song.
And
it's cool. Well, yeah, but it's cool when you're walking by it and you're stopping to look and take pictures. But when you're sitting there for 3 hours, I'm like, Jesus Christ, King, please turn that thing off for 10 minutes.
All right, well, this has been Happy Talk.
Well, no, come to think of it, with automobiles going on, I haven't told you my incredible It's a Small World story about Black Beauty. My poor beleaguered, you're a grown adult, reasonable, financially responsible adult person with a family, so you can tell me that I'm right. Now, I've mentioned that Black Beauty has, well, it's a little over 303,000 miles on it. And I'd said back in 2019 that when it got to 300,000, because it was like a 298.5 then, I was going to get a new one. It's the last vehicle I'd ever have to buy, right? But then, since then, I average now, Brian, 35 miles a week driving. And it's taken me the last 6 years to get the next 5,000 miles. So I would be fiscally irresponsible if I bought a new vehicle, or even a used vehicle at the prices these days, just to drive 35 miles a week, wouldn't I?
Ask your question again.
I would be fiscally irresponsible to buy a new vehicle just to drive 35 miles a week.
Well, it depends on the condition of your car and how easy it's going to be to keep it in shape going forward.
Well, The thing is, we don't know about that yet, because here's the thing is that there's cosmetic issues, like the door handle on the inside of the driver's door is broke off. So I got to roll the window down and reach outside to open the door.
So people can't escape. Okay, that's one. What else?
And the handle on the other side is a little loose too, to be honest with you. And the air conditioning and heat, the fan has been stuck on high for about the past 4 years, but in the wintertime, it doesn't matter. But in summertime, the air conditioning doesn't really cool. So it's just kind of blowing the hot air at you. And there's holes rusted in the bottoms of both of the front driver and passenger doors. And there's a couple of sensors that don't work anymore. And, just a variety of cosmetic issues. But since I only drive, and I've got to drive the 35 miles a week, because within 3 miles of the castle here, you've got the bank, the post office, the dry cleaners, the Paul's Market, the grocery store, the UPS place. Those, and I like it. This weekend, I went over, picked up some furniture for the in-laws. I can stick it right in the back of this giant thing. It's very useful around the area. But I can't see paying tens of thousands of dollars for anything to replace it at this point. So, but as it's gotten hot weather, there's a little bit of an oil leak. And also it's shuddering a little bit on the acceleration. And there's a matter of this horrible, hot, burnt rubber stench and fucking white smoke coming out from behind the front wheel. As of last week, when it got real hot. And so I'm thinking, well, something might be wrong, because that didn't used to do that. So I called yesterday and was going to take it into the place that I had the service done on it last year. And they fixed it right up. It was just running like a speckled pup. And they have closed down. They are gone. They're gone. And so I'm like, what the fuck? So I look on the internet to an automotive repair place close to me, and I pick the one at the top. And I call it, right? And the guy answers, and I said, yes, sir. I said, I've got a Ford Expedition with really high mileage, got a few issues going on. And he said, is this Jim? Who is this? Hey, this is Tyler. I used to work over at the other place, and I used to. I said, they ain't in business anymore. Oh, no, I'm over here now. They went out of business. A big multinational corporation bought their chain, regional chain or whatever, and closed about 60 of the stores. And, but he's over here at this bigger, nicer, newer place now. And I buzzed right over there, and I've dropped it off, and he's now addressing the issue. So what is the chance of that?
Yeah, everyone needs a David Putty. You're lucky.
I've been to this previous place just the last 2 summers, because it's not like I get regular maintenance driving that few miles. But he was there. So yeah, is this Jim? I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So it's a small world.
I think you need a new car.
But no, why?
What year is it? What year is your car?
It's a 2007 Ford Expedition.
Yeah, it's going to be 20 years old in a couple of years.
Well, are you an ageist? Are you discriminating against the aged? If it's still running okay,
when it comes to functional automobiles, yes, I am.
If I can get it not to have a hot, burning stench and white smoke coming out from behind the front tire.
You don't even have to worry about the torture vehicle things, like the no door handle that works and the hot air that shoots out of the rusted holes.
Well, no, now, I've got used to, if I ride in Stacy's car, to open the door, I start to roll the window down to reach out, because it's been a couple of years. I've got used to it now. But there's no sense
in the window down. There's another whole thing, man. I would hate to be a prostitute in Louisville, like waiting on the street for someone to give them a ride.
Oh, come on.
They're in for trouble.
I have a sign on the dashboard that says, really, this car's just fucked up. But no, there's no sense just throwing your money away, Brian, on frivolous things like cars when I just need something that will haul shit around the neighborhood here.
And you want size. Like you don't want to be in a sedan.
Yeah, that's right, because size matters, baby.
No, but you don't want to be in a sedan. You want to be high up off the ground. You gotten used to that.
I want to be high.
Oh, boy.
I want to be free. Because think about this. I've driven 303,400 miles since 2007, all in that vehicle. If I sit in Stacy's car, which is the Jeep thing that's kind of a mini SUV, or God bless America, in a regular car, I feel like a roller skate is sitting underneath me going down the interstate. It's very disconcerting because that's the only vehicle that I've operated for all this time.
Had you ever driven a vehicle? Had you ever driven a truck before you had one? Before you had a truck, had you ever driven one?
I didn't. Years ago when I was on the road, I didn't like large vehicles because they were so unwieldy. And think about this. You had fewer choices back in the old days. Bubba had one of those Ford Econoline vans. But goddamn, that thing was like driving a refrigerator down the fucking highway, right? If you got up any speed, and it was not in the best repair either. And Bobby had one of those goddamn, in Louisiana in 1984, he had a 76 Lincoln. Those things you used to have to pay 3 parking meters. They were so fucking long. And then you got a pickup truck. A lot of the guys got a customized van. You couldn't take a pickup truck on the road. That was a big vehicle, but there weren't these SUVs that are kind of like the middle ground between light and shadow. So I always just had something that got good gas mileage because I've never owned a vehicle since I've been in the wrestling business that I put under 175,000 miles on. So, but then the guy over in Lexington that was the dealer to the stars over at Paul Miller Ford, Ronnie P, he got me to get a Lincoln Navigator. And I liked that you could haul things and it was very comfortable and blah, blah, blah. But it got brain damage. Actually, that is the one vehicle I didn't put 100 and whatever thousand miles on. It got brain damage, and I traded it in and got this one. Its computer brain couldn't function properly, and it was not giving the right signals to the fucking engine.
See, that's the other thing. Even if you got a new car, as much as I think once you adapted, you would like modern conveniences, all mod cons. But
no, I don't.
You would have to adapt to a screen, to everything kind of being smart now in the car, no matter what you got. I think.
No, I'm not driving anything smarter than I am. I've driven 1.3 million miles or whatever it was we figured out at one point. Successfully so far. I'm not letting the car take over, but no, Stacy's car has a thing where it'll brake if it thinks you haven't broken properly, it'll broke for you, or swerve, or beep, or honk, or fucking talk to you and says, "Get out of the way, you dumb shit."
It honks. I never heard of a car that does that.
It does all kinds of shit. It makes me a nervous wreck. No, I'll not be having any of that. I want the car will do what I tell the car to do. I am the pilot. It is my tool.
Well, what are you
Speaking of tools, how are you?
What are you going to do when your plane is decommissioned, Mr. Pilot?
Well, that's how I'm going to stay on the ground.
You going to get a bicycle?
No.
Everything's within 3 miles of your house. You said it. Just get a bicycle with a basket.
No, fuck you. What do you think I am, Margaret Hamilton? Goddamn.
Plenty of other people ride around on their bicycles with their baskets.
I am going to fix the engine or the thermostat or whatever's going on in Black Beauty, and it will continue to carry me around at the rate of 35 miles a week for the next several years until I'm too old and shriveled to go out and do these things I do all the time.
And they have no idea what the burnt rubber smell or the white smoke is?
Well, I haven't heard back yet. I'm waiting to hear back now on the, they're going to take it out now that it's getting hot here and it stopped raining. See if it rains, it cools it off. You need a good, hot, sunny, bright, miserable fucking day with the heat beating down, and then drive it in some traffic for a while. And then it starts stinking.
All right. Well,
like this show.
Speaking of stinking, Jim.
Yeah. What do you got?
We got a great show. We got lots of questions. We got a Saudi Arabia review.
Hey, you know what? We also want to say Robert Foreman from Lake Arthur, Louisiana, sent us a nice email. He's had some health issues the last quite a while, and we hope he feels better. And Robert, we love you. We want to say that and get that here at the top of the program before anything gets lost.
Yeah, feel better, and the show will get better, Robert.
Well, you know, he was already liking it. See, now you've pointed out shit to him he hadn't noticed before.
How can he not notice? No. Feel better, Robert, and the show really will get better. And, of course, That will happen right after we tell you about wonderful things at JimCornette.com, Cornette's Collectibles.
Well, the wonderful thing is that we're shipping quickly. Hotchkiss is back full speed now, and whether it's the T-shirts, the books, the pictures, the Cult of Cornette membership certificates, of course, the Midnight Express, and the Jim Cornette action figures, and so much more at JimCornette.com. And stay tuned. Plans are already being made for a wonderful Christmas for the Cult of Cornette out there that are merchandise and memorabilia collectors. I'll just give that little tease there. But JimCornette.com right now. Buy the stuff we have now, because once that we get rid of this stuff, we ain't going to have this stuff anymore. We're going to get new stuff.
And then the stuff that is already collectibles will become rare collectibles, so get it now.
And then we'll buy it back and resell it for more money.
Ooh, a buyback program. This is getting interesting.
Yeah. See, I rethought the Corny Bucks thing.
Well, that's
I
not
figure
the same thing.
what I'll do is I'll wait until this shit's really valuable, and then I'll go to everybody and buy it back for the same thing that I sold it to them for, and then I'll resell it for more money.
All right. Once again, Continental on sale. Whoever wants to buy this territory. But Jim, let's move on here with the show. And because we have a ton of Saudi Arabia news. Oh, and by the way, on the topic of merch, I should say, Drive Thru shirts, Corny shirts, Travis Heckel artwork shirts, ArcadianVanguard.com, or on the Shop app, or of course, every video on YouTube. Why don't we start with some from the files here before we go to Saudi Arabia? And I know we've been doing Paul Heyman.
Now wait a minute.
You've been doing Paul Heyman. What I meant to say is, I know we've been reviewing.
I tell you, hey.
What did he write to you, Jim? That night with you was so special.
Oh, come on now. He said, thank you for one of the greatest nights of my life, but it was at Sabatino's. So, you know.
I'll wait for you at the tunnel. I think that's what it said.
Oh, no, he did not say that. He did not say there was nothing about a tunnel involved. It was behind a dumpster, but we're not going there either.
No, not today. But we will return to the Paul Heyman file, but we're going to take a break and visit a different file. I bumped into one that was also surprisingly large, like the Paul Heyman file. And let me grab this here.
Shockingly big file.
Jim, I have in my hand.
And of course, by the way, this is, you didn't even mention, this is from the files of the Wrestling News that are held and curated by Arcadian Vanguard.
That is correct. Everything that was a part of the collection of the Wrestling News, Pro Wrestling Enterprises, Wrestling Review, The Rings Wrestling, Major League Wrestling Programs, and various other publications. And this is the Gory Guerrero file.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. No, he was a fine man. There was no,
well,
reason to
I
say,
just said, no, that's a man. I would have never picked that name out in a million years. I would have even thought he had a large file, but apparently it's ginormous.
Well, let me get through. There's a lot of pictures of the family members, the various family members. Here's an original piece of artwork. Gory Guerrero, Mexico's contribution to the wrestling world, has made himself quite a name with his cyclonic and aggressive style, wrestling knowledge, unlimited. And there's some artwork there. Maybe we'll post that one after the fact. I'm trying to get to some correspondence. Lots and lots of family pictures. A whole bunch of pictures.
Now, what era
Everything. Seemingly Gory's career and everything from the start of the career of his children. I don't know if there's too much of Eddie Guerrero here. I'll have to check again. This is a gigantic. This is a Jim Cornette photo of Hector. Yeah, Hector Guerrero, photo by Jim Cornette. What'd you think of Hector in Mexico? What'd you think of Hector in Memphis in, 81?
No, 79.
Oh, 79.
He was 79. He was tremendous because here's the thing. Hector, obviously, Guerrero was well-versed in the lucha style, but he also could work with Americans and incorporate lucha into the American style so that it didn't come off caca. And of course, now bear in mind, this was 1979, so both Mexican and American wrestling looked a lot more legitimate then. But it was because he had a completely different style. He was doing the flying head scissors, but instead of the Ricky and Robert Gibson Americanized flying head scissors, he was doing the ankle, where they would jump up and he'd fucking catch the guy's head with his ankles and fucking spin and take him down. And the reverse fucking presses where he'd reverse direction in midair and the big flying leg drops and all this shit. And it was exciting because he was the one guy on the card doing that style. And as a smaller, he was 6 feet tall, but he was thin. But as a smaller baby face doing the flying, it made sense. The bigger heels couldn't deal with it. And he could sell his ass off properly and get fucking heat on the heel and then make a fiery comeback. He was really good. And the fans loved him because they hadn't seen that type of work.
Of course, the famous angle where Austin Idol was the Mente Negro produced the famous line from Lance Russell, "Hector, tell him in Mexican to get out of here."
Yeah, the no good son of a guy.
I have a letter here to Norman Keitzer when he was still in New York. This is from International City Wrestling Club, Wrestling Lucha Libre, El Paso, Texas, June 11th, 1974.
And of course, we should mention Gory Guerrero was the promoter in El Paso by this time.
That's right. Actually, the actual letter, unlike the letterhead on the envelope, the letter says Guerrero Resources, Inc. under Wrestling Lucha Libre. Dear Mr. Keitzer, received the magazines and have sold some, and look forward to perhaps being able to build the sales up. In reference as to who we would like to see in the Western edition here in El Paso, the popular boys are Ricky Romero, Dory Funk Jr., and the Kozak brothers. There are also two very good Mexican lady wrestlers, which I will make an effort to furnish you copy and pictures in the near future, which might be more than worthwhile, considering for your publication also. Yeah, that is the way it says that.
Yes.
Enclosed is some information which I thought you would like to have. Didn't know if you had this particular information in your files or not. Anytime I could be of assistance, don't hesitate to ask. Sincerely, Salvador Guerrero Jr., Gory Guerrero. And it's signed, and he attached from a magazine, and I'm not sure which one, The History of the World's Junior Heavyweight Championship by Leroy McGurk.
Oh!
And it says, it's written in apparently pencil here, found the missing link to the World's Light Heavyweight Championship. On next page, seem it later became the Junior Heavyweight until the tournament in Chicago. I am sure Leroy McGurk would know more about it. So I guess there was some question about the title and who had it and what claim people had. I mean, obviously the pictures here, Rip Kirby, John Swensky, Vern Gagne, Leroy McGurk, Danny McShane, Baron Leone. The junior heavyweight title did have a weird history in terms of its placement on the card and the people who had it. At a certain point, they stopped being elevated to anything past that point.
Well, there was more legitimate call for a world junior heavyweight champion in the 40s and 50s and some even into the 60s because of Danny Hodge. I mean, he was a special case. He carried it for all of the 60s for the most part. Dropped it for a month to Sputnik Monroe in Oklahoma to win it back, as Sputnik was scared to fucking death. He didn't want it because he didn't want Danny to beat him up trying to get it back. But there were junior heavyweight territories. Tennessee was one. They used, at one point, Nick Gulas and Roy Welch used the World Junior Heavyweight title, and even in the pre-TV days, as their, Holy Grail championship rather than the World Heavyweight title, because it was a lighter or junior heavyweight territory. And some of the other territories in the South were like that. But, except for Hodge, like I say, in the 60s, really it had kind of gone by the wayside. In the early 70s, Ken Mantell, remember, dude, I can't believe the same balding, pudgy, sad, beagle-faced motherfucker that was my booker in 1985 was the World Junior Heavyweight Wrestling Champion in 1975. But it wasn't drawing any money, and it would be featured, if a popular Hispanic star in California was going to go for it, or Nick and Roy would still feature a World Junior Heavyweight title match every once in a while, but for the most part, it was yeah.
I have some photos here, just looking at the captions at the back, or on the back of these, I should say. Chavo Guerrero gets tangled up in the ropes after Dory Funk attack. Who Chavo pinned? And the photos by Michael Ano. But instead of like a C with a circle for copyright, it has an R circled. I guess it's restricted use. Here's another photo.
Possibly ripped off.
Balderas Bullring, September 3rd, 1967, Juarez, Mexico. Gory Guerrero with a vicious knee lift that sends the medic #1 reeling. Photo by Bill Mobley, Amarillo, Texas.
Oh. Yeah, a lot of those old 60s photos are from Bill Mobley. Never met the gentleman, but I recognize the name.
And here, once again, here's another letter from Gory to Norm Keitzer, going over this history. May 8th, 74, Dear Mr. Keitzer, I'm enclosing a complete history of the Light Heavyweight Championship belt to the best of my knowledge. Also, I'm answering your questions as honestly and as impartially as to help you along with the story that I appreciate very much. Here are the questions. I know that you still wrestle occasionally, but do you still today claim to be the world's light heavyweight champion? Yes, I still wrestle, and I still claim the championship. I promote in El Paso and Juarez, Mexico at the same time, and it's here that I mostly defend my title. So let's stop there. We're talking about the light heavyweight championship. Here's Gory Guerrero saying he's the champion in 74, at least in his towns.
Well, now, the light heavyweight and the junior heavyweight title was two different things, and the light heavyweight championship had been one of the traditional belts in Mexico because they all had they had more weight classes that were actually pushed, had stars in them. And I don't know what their situation was with the light heavyweight title, but maybe, and with the documents that he had there, he's trying to draw some type of lineage to the light heavyweight title, or at least the one he claimed, and the junior heavyweight title in the States, or whatever. But it wasn't uncommon for a lot of the big stars in Lucha Libre to have a belt. And I think, didn't Mascaras just keep some kind of belt for like decades? And they just
was it Eddie Einhorn's?
It might have been that. Yeah, I think it was. He just said, fuck it, I'll just keep it because I never lost it. They would keep the belt if they never happen to lose it. Or even if they did happen to lose it, but not a lot of people heard about it, they just claimed to still be the champion. And he's defending it in the two towns he promotes. So, I don't know that it was a hot national and international championship at that point.
Question 2. Again, these are written questions that were submitted to Gory Guerrero. It is not myself, but the National Wrestling Alliance that recognizes the claim of the title of Rey Mendoza. Since your promotions are under the banner of the NWA, do you recognize Mendoza? The answer? Definitely no. I will not recognize anybody until I'm defeated in the ring for the belt.
In one of the 2 towns that I promoted.
Question 3. Would you like to wrestle Mendoza for the title, his claim against yours, with the winner becoming undisputed champion? Assuming that Mendoza would sign for such a match and the percentage were right for both of you. The answer? Yes. I am sure Mendoza would sign, but the wrestling promoter in Mexico City, Mr. Salvador Luderoth Jr., would not let him. In the 1971 NWA convention in Mexico City, with the hopes of ridding of the problem for promotional purposes, I offered to do so and was turned down. I must confess that before the title stripping in 1966, they had made a similar offer to do in 1963. I had then started my promotions here, and the contract was not direct, so I turned it down. I came in through the Wrestlers Union, and I was not getting along with them at that time.
Now, and by the way, he's not bullshitting. In Mexico, they had at one time, I guess they still have a Wrestlers Union, and some of the commissions actually treated the business legitimately at that point. So there was all kinds of shit you could do.
And again, talking about these issues, the NWA convention in Mexico City, he was stripped of the title. He was willing to unify it or have a big champion versus champion or claim versus claim match, and Salvador Luderoth, that's CMLL, but he turned it down.
Well, and that's like even more than the United States, there was always guys that when they were on the outs with a promoter, I ain't gonna book that son of a bitch, right? But
no one more than
they carry it. Well, yeah, they carry it to this day that one of their wrestlers can't work on a show where another of the company wrestlers is on and all this stuff and everything. So they blackball people heavy down there.
The next question. You enclosed a list of championship matches in which you defended the title from 1960 to 1967. Have you defended the belt you hold since then? The answer? Yes. 4 times more, and getting ready for another title defense this month.
4 times in 7 years?
The next question. I believe you have 2 sons who are professional wrestlers. Though I am not sure of this, would you please include some photos of them and also any short information so I can include a mention in the story? I have a family of 6, is the answer. 4 boys and 2 girls. 3 of my boys are wrestling professionally. I'm including a picture of each separately with their respective school record. So this is early before anyone really knew about all the kids.
Well, now, wait, what date did you say it was? 74?
74. It is May 8th, 74.
When did Chavo first start getting attention in L.A.?
Was it 75? Because by 76, he was over there. So it must be 75.
And Mondo followed him to L.A., or I don't mean followed him, but came afterwards. Hector was younger, so this would have been right about the year before anybody knew really nationally widely who the Guerreros were. But then, Chavo was on Georgia TV, and they spread quickly.
The next question. As a promoter, are you a member of the National Wrestling Alliance or associated with an NWA booking office? From the wrestlers on the cards, I assume you work with the Amarillo booking office. Here's the answer. I am not a member of the NWA. That's because I do not have a booking office, but work with the booking office in Amarillo. The Funk Boys, that's actually the whole sentence. The Funk Boys. The Juarez promotion is completely independent from the El Paso office, and there I am supposed to be bucking Luderoth, and he is a member of the Alliance. So let's stop there. Him running any town in Mexico is him bucking Salvador Luderoth.
Yeah, well, and El Paso, for anybody not familiar with Texas geography, is in West Texas, about as far West Texas as you can get. And it's actually a bigger city than either Amarillo or Lubbock, at least it used to be. And it was when we were out there in 85, even when Amarillo and Lubbock were kind of like, blah, well, we did $8,000 or $12,000. You go to El Paso, it's $30,000 at $6 and $8 tickets or whatever. So that was, since Gory Guerrero, that was his hometown. He had the ins and could get favorable rates on things, or the building or the TV or whatever the case. He was the local promoter for World Class in that city, but then World Class didn't run anything in Mexico, so he's jumping over to Juarez and using completely different talent that were lucha guys exclusively, but he's got the ins in that building, in that town also, for the building and whatever, so he can promote that. He's doing his own thing.
The final question here. At this time, in 1974, if you do not seek a match with Mendoza, how do you think the situation of the World's Light Heavyweight Championship should be settled? The answer? I do seek a match with Mendoza, but I doubt it will come about. I am of the firm belief that championships are won and lost in the ring, and not because of promotional differences. I have offered to settle the whole thing under their conditions, but the response has been negative. I do confess that if an offer would be made now, I would let my promotional desires influence me. I would like them to be recognized and dealt with as far as Mexico City is concerned. I hope you find all this material useful in preparing the story on the Light Heavyweight Championship belt. If I may be of any other service to you, please feel free to call on me in regards to this or any other matter. Thanking you again, I am, yours truly, Salvador Gory Guerrero.
How old was he at that point in 1974?
Well, that's the thing. When I said, he was saying he was still the champion, in 74, I know he was still wrestling. A lot of guys never retire, but, he was up there. I mean, he was El Santo's partner years and years earlier.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, the Sheik had the U.S. belt until forever. So, but again, he was defending it on, his own shows and or then, whoever would book him, but he wasn't about to lose it. But
he was born in 21.
So he was 53 at that point in time, and apparently on the outs with, the office, as they say. And say that's, I think when Adrian Street, because he got sideways with joint promotions, and he started doing independent shit, which is why he ended up, moving to the States. But I think he had kept some kind of belt or championship, or was still the champion, hadn't dropped it or whatever. And it happens, especially in international wrestling and in the older days where there wasn't, as much control over the particular promotion's championship as happened because everybody kept doing this shit.
Here's the bios he sent of his children. Sal Chavo Guerrero, 4-year varsity letterman in high school, team champion in 1967. 1969 to 1971, 2-year letterman in college, UTEP. 1968, 3rd place in Mexico Olympic tryouts.
I didn't know that.
Only El Pasoan to make the varsity team in college. 1972 to 1974, Jefferson High School coach in wrestling and football district champs, wrestling district champs. In 2 years have developed the team to 6th place in the state of Texas in wrestling. His high school wrestling record, 38-9-1. College record, 24-4. Armando Guerrero, Mondo, 67 city champs by team. 68 city champion, 120-pound weight division. Captain of the wrestling team for 2 years. 68 to 69, have 4 second-place medals and 1 first-place medal. 3 years of judo, ranked as a first-degree purple belt, Shotokan, in Mexico. Summer of 68, participated in the juvenile games. Juegos.
They were just so silly.
Juegos Juveniles, held in Veracruz, Mexico was eliminated. And also this Hector here. I won't go through everything. A lot of the same stuff. 2 years judo orange belt. 4 years of football. So this is early in everyone's career. And again, the promoter is now in touch with the person like we've dealt with previous episodes of From the Files, selling him programs, selling him magazines, things he could sell at the newsstand.
And, the West edition that Norm Keitzer had referenced in the letter was they did NWA East, which covered the Carolinas and the Tennessee territory and Georgia and Florida. But NWA West was for the Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. Where's the state I'm searching for? Missouri, McGurk, Missouri, and Arkansas, that area, and out into West Texas. And they had a separate edition trying to feature those wrestlers, especially with them on the cover, so they could sell more magazines.
I have here another letter. This is part of an envelope with a bunch of stuff. This is slightly before the previous thing I read, but I guess it may clarify some of it. March 12th, 74. Dear Mr. Keitzer, I received your request this past week, and I hope that the information I have will be of value to you. As a courtesy to you, I phoned Mexico City, Mexico, in your behalf. Rey Mendoza is still champion. El Solitario has not regained the title. As a point of interest, which I believe you are not aware of, is that I possess the original, that's in caps, light heavyweight world's championship belt. I won this championship belt on July 29th, 1960, in Mexico City, from Rey Mendoza. I have today this belt in my possession.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Stop the presses for a second. He won this is 1974. He won the belt in 1960 from the guy that currently has the belt now?
That currently has the championship now, I guess.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, boy, talk about stale at the top of the card, but go ahead.
I have today this belt in my possession because I refuse to defend my championship belt exclusively in Mexico. That's in caps, exclusively. The reason for this was that the conditions and percentages were not compatible. As a result of my action, I was stripped of the belt and the title without any notice. The NWA, in parentheses Mexico City, created another belt and title to be available for future competitions. I have enclosed documents and photos supporting my statements. I have other documents should you desire them, should you wish to write an article on this, in caps, injustice.
Injustice! So it sounds like that he said the percentages weren't right. He wasn't making any money in Mexico with this belt, but Gory Guerrero had runs in Texas and different places in the United States. I don't know his career verbatim off the top of my head, but it sounds like he went and wasn't working for them in Mexico when he had a better fucking spot, and they said, fuck it, and stripped him of the belt. Is that what it sounds like to you?
Do you know that no matter where you might look, that there is no record of my having won this light heavyweight championship of the world? I thought that since you asked about the championship record, that this might be of special interest to you for a feature article. I am most willing to cooperate with you completely on the facts, pictures, or other documents you may desire. Yours in wrestling, Sal Gory Guerrero. And with this package appears to be copies of handwritten notes of his matches.
Good Lord.
Al Cache, Juarez, Mexico, Medic, Kozak. There appear to be photocopies from the mid-70s about him winning the title. Again, more, it appears to be his notes. And then there's just copies of other letters. Here's a copy of a letter from Salvador Luderoff, but it's in Spanish, so I'm not going to try. Again, there's lots of official documents he's attached here. Here's a copy of a telegram in Spanish about the whole thing. Is there anything in English here?
Well, if we could find somebody that could interpret this, we might could get to the bottom of this long stirring controversy about whether or not Gory Guerrero got screwed out of the light heavyweight title.
Here's a letter which came first here? I'll read this one first. September 27th, 1962, the Mexico City Commission, Florida number 10, 20 Peso, Mexico City, DF, Mexico. Gentlemen, at the recent convention of the National Wrestling Alliance in St. Louis, Missouri, on August 24th and 25th, the membership has decided to vacate the light heavyweight title as recognized by our organization. Gory Guerrero, who has held the title, has been wrestling and apparently booking wrestlers around El Paso, and thus has not defended the title in Mexico City, where he originally won it.
Aha!
We felt that Salvador Luderoth, who is a member of our organization, should have the services of the light heavyweight champion, and have, therefore, informed him. Also, the promoters of Houston, also the promoters of Houston, Texas area, to begin a tournament, and the winner of the tournament will be recognized as the new light heavyweight champion by our alliance. Senor Luderoth was unable to attend our meeting due to other businesses, and had no idea that such a resolution would be adopted. When a new champion is crowned, and if Gory Guerrero wants to challenge this champion later, we will have every right to do so. Would like to hear from your organization as to whether you will go along with the National Wrestling Alliance in the recognition of a new light heavyweight champion. Sincerely, Sam Mushnick, Executive Secretary, National Wrestling Alliance.
And this letter was addressed to a variety of people, or who specifically?
This was addressed to the Mexico City Commission. Who wrote back.
I see. Oh!
Here's a letter, and looks like this is in English, from the Commission de Boxe y Lucha Libre, November 13th, 1962, Sam Mushnick, the Claridge Hotel, St. Louis. Sir, we acknowledge receipt of your letter of September 2, referring to your alliance's decision to vacate the light heavyweight title. The contents of your second paragraph are absolutely incorrect. Gory Guerrero has defended the title in Mexico City on 2 occasions against the former champion Rey Mendoza and against Tsuji Sito. In addition, we have gathered enough information to learn that Gory Guerrero is at present one of the most active champions, having defended his title from all the outstanding contenders in his class. The mere fact, there's a red X next to this one, the mere fact that Gory Guerrero does not wish to sell his services to the Mexican promoter Luderoth is not, to the thinking of this commission, reason enough to deprive Gory Guerrero from his well-earned title. The Mexico City Boxing and Wrestling Commission, as affiliate of the National Wrestling Association of America, will continue recognizing Gory Guerrero as World's Light Heavyweight Champion as long as he is recognized by the National Wrestling Association of America, or he is defeated in the ring by a better man. Signed, Jose Govarrubia, the wrestling, that word I can't really make out, the Mexico City Boxing and Wrestling Commission.
But hey, you don't mess with Jose Gargiola.
What do you think of the fact that Sam Mushnick sent this letter and that they said no?
Well, as I said, the commissions down there were not beholden to the promotions, and they were they are, I guess, still possibly an independent body. And then the different promoters, they would try to, excommunicate some of these guys, but the commission would need, and they would treat it like it was a fucking shoot. And I'm sure that since Salvador Luderoth was the NWA promoter in Mexico, when they had the meeting, he told Sam Mushnick, this fucking guy's running his own shows. He's booking these other guys. He's not defending the title. And so they stripped him in absentia and then sent that letter, and they got it sent back to him. That's why they're even if a The way that I understand it, and again, if they've changed it in modern times, somebody let me know, but I think it's still the case that if you hold one of the recognized championships, the promotions themselves, at least until modern times, didn't control a championship in Mexico. It was whoever won it could quit one promotion and go to the next one. And, the commission would back them up because they were still, the champion. Which led to much more ill will. That's what I'm saying.
Imagine if it was like that here. If you jump from one company to another, you just take the title, not just the title, but the actual recognition of the championship with you.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Here I have a newspaper article. July 1964, El Paso, Texas. 1840, see wild, gory Sheik bout. And there are a ton of photos of this bout that look like a bloody mess. Gory Guerrero and the Sheik were licking their wounds today after staging one of the wildest wrestling matches in recent seasons. All rules were out the window during last night's frantic test at the Coliseum, which lasted 22 minutes and got nowhere. Both fighters were disqualified. Hold on there. 22 minutes for the Sheik. What do you think of that?
Well, but no. This was several things. Is 1964. Because remember in the 50s, he was athletic. He took bumps. He, did business. And also because he's in West Texas, he's working for Dory Sr. and that office. And the Dory Sr. and the Sheik went so far back, he would come down and work extended periods for Dory Sr., even when he had just bought his own territory and blah, blah, blah. And he would, he had to work in Texas at that point. So he was still a guy that, would get in there and work hard and not do all of the crazy shit in 5 minutes. But it's Sputnik Monroe told us all one time, he said, Dory Sr. called me up and said, Sputs, can you come into Amarillo? I've had the Sheik down here for a month. Everybody works like the Sheik. I need somebody to teach him to take bumps again. But he would put in time and do his shit.
A paid crowd of 1840, second largest of the year, had a little respite during a brawl in which both strongmen slugged one another through the ropes and drew blood. The Sheik started the illegal activities by using a small stick to open a wound on Guerrero's forehead. But the crowd roared in approval when Guerrero snared the dubious weapon and slashed a cut across the Sheik's head. Referee Lee...
This is in the newspaper, by the way.
Referee Lee Ortega had little luck controlling the match and received almost as much punishment as the principals. Ortega and both fighters were splattered by blood. The Sheik added to Guerrero's misery by walloping his head against a ring post, then biting him on the forehead. Referee Ortega finally decided to halt the match after both fighters took turns belting him to the canvas. The match ended without a fall, thus squelching Guerrero's hopes of a quick revenge for a previous drubbing handed out by the Sheik. The slugfest continued after the bell until both fighters were separated by wrestlers who jumped into the ring. The mysterious medics made it 8 in a row in the other headliner by quieting Gentleman Ed Sharp and Hangman Bud Cody in 33 minutes. I'm not too familiar with them. Do you know them?
Was Ed Sharp... I'm thinking of Ed Miller, the third Miller brother. I don't think Ed Sharp was related to Mike and Ben, or was he? But I don't know. I don't know Bud. But see, that's the thing, is they shot an angle. That was an angle. Went out there, big fucking double juice, bloody the referee up, no contest, pull apart. They probably came back the next week with a cage or, a strap match or whatever the fuck. And 1,800 people this was El Paso, right? Or was it?
El Paso, July 64.
For El Paso, couple thousand people. in the old building there wasn't bad, and they probably did better for the rematch because of that publicity.
Yeah, what do you think of doing like a match like that? I mean, assuming they had an idea this was going to be one of their better drawing crowds of the year, this was the second best as of this point in July, midway. Doing a match like that, do people feel fulfilled? Like, okay, we've seen it, or is the reaction we need to see more of it?
No, that was the predominant, overwhelming feeling in the building at that point in time in wrestling was we still want to see the Sheik get his ass kicked by Gory. So when we watch TV next week, are they going to give Gory a stipulation where, we can control this fucking guy? Oh, it's a cage. Yes, I want to go back. The people went to see the babyface win, and if you got them hooked in the program, they would go until the babyface won. That's why Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant did, I think, like 11 out of 13 weeks in Memphis, and the same thing in Louisville. And Dundee and Lawler did 9 or 10 out of 11 or 12 weeks in 77 because the people just kept coming and coming until the babyface finally gets even. And now they just, we've seen that match already. Well, it'd all be different fucking matches. Every single one of them would be different with different rules and different finishes and different happenings in them. But now people are like, we've seen that match. That defeats the whole purpose of fucking wrestling.
Well, Jim, to finish these results here, the Medic's victory was made difficult by the handcuffs used to keep one of them chained to the ring post. Other matches, Paul Harrison and Arnold Patrick drew. Wayne Shaddle topped Bobo Johnson, and Gordo Martinez and Gordo Chihuahua teamed up to whip Kenny Mack and Kurt Von Hess.
My God, I've actually heard of Gordo Chihuahua and Kurt Von Hess and Kenny Mack. Was that the guy that became one of the Dillingers with Don Fargo and got his leg shot off?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, maybe.
I'm trying to think. Kenny Mack became somebody else. I'm trying to think. Well, nevertheless. Yeah, you can see it wasn't really an all-star card. They were carrying the weight up top. Were Gory and Sheik.
Yeah, it didn't sound like it was the talent being booked out of Amarillo or, main event talent from Texas that time. I think for some of these shows, and again, if he's on the outs of the NWA, they're literally writing letters to the fucking commission.
Well, see, that's why I'm saying it sounds like Gory was running the town himself, booking people that worked around West Texas, and he got the Sheik from Dory. He didn't just bring the Sheik from Detroit to work El Paso. So the Funks were still supporting Gory, but maybe not giving him access to everybody.
Well, there it is, and there's more here, so maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future, but from the files, Gory Guerrero, any final thoughts hearing this and hearing the biggest star and promoter for that town dealing directly with the publisher of the programs and the magazines?
Well, that's not unusual because, if the biggest star in the town is also the promoter, he's dealing with everybody sooner or later. I mean, I was a massive megastar, but when I was promoting Louisville here, I was still dealing with the common people. But it's a fascinating look at not only the political behind-the-scenes manipulations, even back then in Mexico especially, but even involving the NWA and Sam Muchnick and their convention, but also the way that a lot of the old-time wrestlers said, no, this is my fucking belt. Nobody beat me for it. I'm going to defend it on my shows, and I'm the champion until somebody beats me on one of my shows. I love that.
It's interesting, too, because the complaint that he hasn't defended the title, the commission says that's not true. We actually know for a fact he's defended the title in Mexico. You have heard in the past about the office being the stooge to the commission to punish the wrestlers they're unhappy with. Didn't work here.
Well, and because it's a different ball game down there with the way that commission is set up. Here, the commissions, unless they were just complete assholes to the business in general, were way more likely to favor the promoters because they did regular business with them for years and years and years. And they're the ones that paid the taxes, and they're the ones that license the red. They get their money from them. So, they either were pains in the ass to the promoters in a place where they didn't particularly like or understand the business, or they were more likely to be on the promoter's side than the boys in the places where they'd been old cronies for so long. But you never actually got any commissions in the United States. It was really a boon and beneficent to the wrestlers at large. But in Mexico, it happens.
Well, there it is from the files. And of course, Jim, perhaps you're someone who makes files or wants to sell files. Perhaps you sell things that people buy. Perhaps you make things that people want. And of course, if you have to sell them, you need the right partner. And we know exactly who could partner with the listeners.
Well, that's right. Because ladies and gentlemen, if you've got something that a lot of people want, then you need somebody on your side to protect you, because those people are going to come and take it away from you. You want to get a good price for it. They want to knock you over the head and steal it. Well, not with Shopify around, because I'll tell you what, Shopify, if people come to your house and try to steal your shit, Shopify will have them surrounded down on the ground in a ground and pound.
No, that's not what they do.
Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Metaphorically or figuratively or literally, they will not be there. They will not.
They will always support you from afar. From afar, yes. Ladies and gentlemen.
Without bodily contact, yes.
Yes, there will be no bodily contact involved in this. But folks, if you've got an idea for a business, if you have a dream, some way you want to retire, let's say you want to sell sex toys on the beach somewhere. Well, Shopify is the people that can deliver those dildos all day long. Well, because they're the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States is powered by Shopify. They got that shop app and the purple button, but they can also get you started with your own design studio, hundreds of ready-to-use templates, building you a beautiful online store to match your style. Let's say you're flamboyant. Then you can have all the colors of the rainbow. Let's say you're morbid. You can just have basic black. But it's all about the style of the Framistat that you'd like to sell to the American public and those around the world at large. And Shopify can help you with your product descriptions and even enhance your photography. And they can help you like you've got a marketing team behind you. They're going to send 4 or 5 people over to your house. You're going to give them some flyers, and they're going to go around the whole neighborhood and hand these son of a bitches out and tell everybody about what you've got going on. That's what's called a social media campaign, Brian, because you're going out in society and you've got media, the flyers, and you're campaigning. And only occasionally will you get ticketed for littering when the people throw away the things that you give them.
Once again, we are talking about our fine friends who run a fine service, the fine people at Shopify, and of course they can help all the listeners out there who are running their own businesses online. You could work with Shopify and everything will be just
great. Then you can actually make money at it.
That's right.
If you're running your own shit, you made the first mistake. If you're representing yourself in court, you got a fool for a client. And if you're trying to do this shit in this today's modern hurry-scurry, complicated world, well, you just shit and fell back in it. But Shopify is your commerce expert. They've got world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing return. As a matter of fact, they have space booked on those big old barges that go from here to China. So they can just send shit to China all day long.
Well, we don't know.
You know what that means?
Well, you don't know what that means. We don't know anything about this.
Well, they say they're experts in international shipping. They can ship things from one nation all to the other internationally. And it's all about making you money. But you know what? It doesn't sound like that anymore. Shopify has a brand new sound effect, custom made, just to insinuate to you how much money you're going to be rolling in. You're going to be like a pig in filth, rolling in the dirty, filthy cash money that you're going to make when Shopify is in charge of your business platform. Play that sound for him, Brian. Is that it? kind of sounds like a belly dancer with some of them clicky things on her thumb and finger going click, click when she throws her hiney in your face. I don't know. I think the money should have a deeper...
Belly dancers aren't known for throwing their heinies in people's face. It's all about the belly.
Well, it's the side of the hiney. No, the hips go sideways.
The hips and the belly, yeah.
Yeah, well, see, the belly's not going forward. The belly's going sideways, but the hip will hit you in the head if you don't watch out, and then you'll hear bells like that. But I think money should have more bass to it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't want to have some kind of outlaw sound effect going on here. But folks, right now, turn your big business idea into cha-ching with Shopify on your side like that.
I'm sorry, I thought you were triggering it. I didn't realize you were just talking normal.
I can't tell you what to do with your own cha-chinger, but it sounds like a rat ringing a bell wanting some more grain. Sign up for your $1 a month trial, period, right now, and start selling today at shopify.com/Cornette. Cornette is what that is. That's how you spell my name. A $1 a month trial period. They can show you what they can do for you, where you will be living on easy street, farting through silk, shitting in tall cotton, and enjoying life in the fast lane while on a beach somewhere, while your online empire takes care of the rest. Shopify.com/Cornette, $1 a month trial period, and save. Start selling today and saving today. You'll save money when you sell more, and you have more, so you'll save more. And then you'll get some more. Get more at Shopify.com/Cornette.
Well, Jim, speaking of ka-ching, the cash registers for WWE were ringing a lot over the last few days. One of their visits, I guess I should say, to Saudi Arabia. And of course, we covered this action as it transpired, as it took place. We watched it at some point.
That is completely a bunch of contradictory shit you just said.
Well, what else best exemplifies the WWE Saudi Arabia relationship? Let's now go through the power of time travel halfway across the world, although we'll be safe. All right, Jim, well, you know what that signifies.
Yeah, I do.
We're on a journey across this great big wide world of ours, God's green earth.
We had a little break there is what we did before, from the one part of the show to the other part of the show. And now, before you say anything, my lawnmowers have showed up. And if you hear any sounds of that description, just so you don't start, we're not doing the goddamn vinyl pressing of Dark Side of the Moon here, It's even radio stations. They have the big truck goes by the radio station sometimes. You never know what's going to happen. Might hear it.
Could be hitmen.
They used to have Wacky Radio the studio was right on the River City Mall, where you could walk by the bystanders or the bypassers or the passers-by or whatever could walk by, and there would be the daggum radio shows going on. They could look it through the window unless they closed the drapes, and it was a nice touch. Brought you closer to your radio personalities. Maybe we ought to do that. Should I start sitting in the front of my big old front window in the TV room down there with the drapes open, Brian, so people driving back and see me do the show in my underwear and unshaven?
Yeah.
What about you? What would you sit in front of?
I don't know. I picture you like Whistler's mother sitting there in a chair. The view would be. No, I would probably just close the shades or close the curtains and take a nap.
No, you gotta be out on the front lawn. You could be out on your front yard doing the show.
It'll be like that Citizen Kane.
People drive by.
It'll be like the trailer to Citizen Kane. You just see a microphone when you hear the voice of Orson Welles. You see all the other people from the Mercury Players, but you don't see him.
Well, they had to wait. The big reveal. You got to pay to see Orson. They got to actually get him in the theater. All right. Well, they got them in the theater this weekend over there, didn't they? Do those people come of their own free will, or is this one of those? When they went to Korea, New Japan, went to Pyongyang or whatever, and they had the 180,000 people that were all suggested, you better show up. What is the persuasion rate over there for this? See, now everybody's going to go, oh, Cornette don't know anything about geopolitics again. I can't even be inter-goddamn-taining anymore. Is that a word, inter-goddamn-taining? Without people, you don't know. I'm not doing 60 minutes here, people. Not doing the goddamn Huntley Brinkley report. We're trying to be fucking reasonably entertaining to listen to. Conversationalistic program. Am I getting just too pissed off for this?
No, keep going.
Why? So you don't have to?
No, you're doing great.
No.
Come on, keep the energy up. Come on, what are you doing? Come on. Come on.
God damn, put the stick down. Jesus Christ. Faster. Like the fucking piano player in Reefer Madness. You just all of a sudden goddamn went off the beam there, pal. This is your show anyway. I'm just a squirrel in your world of trees.
That's right. Well, speaking of squirrels and world of trees, there aren't too many trees that we saw except ones that were planted after the fact, I guess. But Saudi Arabia, WWE's regular...
What kind of trees they got in Saudi Arabia?
I don't know.
Do they have normal trees like all the rest of us, or do they have to have only trees that can grow in a desert? What kind of tree? Can you look that up?
Well, I can shortly. Can I look up agriculture in Saudi Arabia? Just give me a moment here. That wasn't on my menu today, so I wasn't prepared for that one.
Well, check with the State Department fucking website. No, I don't.
Does WrestleNomics have anything on agriculture? No, they do not.
You don't have to. Well, no, if Thurston doesn't have it, it's not. But anyway, before they did the big pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia, they had to do SmackDown in Saudi Arabia. And again, folks, we're not going to go through 3 hours of SmackDown and 3.5 hours of pay-per-view and 3 hours of Raw in a 4-day period of time or whatever in excruciating detail. But there was a couple of things that made some news, and one of them wasn't good, but they made some chicken salad out of the situation with the chicken shit and did, the best they could. But the big power failure, apparently they blew they plugged in so much of their shit, Brian, in the Saudi Arabia Gardens, whatever their building is called over there. They said it. I didn't retain it. I guess there was a big power outage and it flummoxed some of the broadcast. What are they on around the world live? Is it Netflix now?
I think so, yeah.
The broadcast, the streaming service, well, they went dark. And I guess they were down for about 30, but right at the start of the show when Cody, I forget the exact moment, but it was the Cody and Orton, face-to-face interview. So they went black for like 30 or 40 minutes on the streaming live thing for around the world. And then since the time difference, they had some time before it went to USA Network for SmackDown Friday night in the United States. They were able to put some of the oddest camera angles, but we'll try to explain.
Yeah, the Maisel brothers filming a movie on their iPhones is what it was.
Well, no, it looked like the Blair Witch Project if they were all drunk, but no, I think I can explain some of this because normally when we have the technical difficulties, since I've been in a variety of places that have had technical difficulties, we try to explain, well, this is what happened. Well, this is a complicated one, but I got an idea on a couple of things of how they did this, but that was the big thing. I mean, the promo was fine between the two guys, but it was hard to pay attention. But the basic gist of it was that it was their go home promo, and Randy was a little fierier, a little piss and vinegarier, had more piss and vinegar in him. And he's the more heelish guy anyway, and he's the Viper, and he could turn, and there's always that, the tension there, whereas Cody was more calm, babyface, voice of reason, but each one needs the win more than the other. But what happened was everything looked normal because obviously saw SmackDown on USA. Everything looked normal until shortly after Cody began speaking. I think, Orton was out as well, and everybody sang hit. There are singers over there. They know all the words. And do you think they're the new guy that Journey got to replace Steve Perry? He was Filipino, so he didn't really speak English. He had to learn the songs phonetically. Or they're all just the bilingual over there? Because everybody's just with everything.
I don't know if everyone's bilingual, but there probably are a good amount of people that speak English. I guess the bigger question is, do any of these songs actually sell on the charts worldwide? The amount of people that sing every word to them.
Because I don't know what the fucking words are. Because my hearing's shot anyway, and I'm just watching it on TV. Do you think they've got the goddamn headphones on at home? Whatever. But anyway, suddenly, again, as I said, they said there was a power outage in the building. Well, they're already into this thing. And I guess they didn't want to just wave them off or whatever, but they had the audio. And you could tell something was different in the building because all of the pretty lights, the pretty crowd lights were off, but the video screen behind everybody was still on. And the only thing that I can think is that even though because they've got such a big production setup, they probably had generators there to handle certain things. And the things that they had generators for were still running, but when they were just plugged into building power, it blew. I don't know. But some of the shit worked and some of it didn't. And they still had the audio track and the audio sounded fine. But what they were able to do, apparently, the camera shots that you saw, this is my guess, that they had one or two different guys with handheld cameras with battery packs, and they were completely independent. They weren't feeding the truck. They weren't supposed to. They're going around getting the backstage footage or the ambiance for the packages, because sometimes when you see the montages of the bumps and everything, it looks more cinematic and was shot from a different angle. So their production now is so big, they've got guys wandering around with cameras in different places that you see in the documentary footage. So I'm thinking they said, well, we've got these guys, but they don't shoot like a handheld cameraman for television. They're just getting shots, right? All their shit's going to editing. So that's why you would see they're just walking around with the camera, or they're zooming in, or they're focusing, or they're pulling out, or whatever, because they're not supposed to be covering it in the other fashion. And somehow they were able to put all that together to where, and then they had a graphic down at the bottom of the screen. There were technical issues in the live recording. We appreciate your patience. And I guess in the building, after Orton and Cody had finished, then they just shut down, doing anything until they could get the issue resolved, and then came back up and you saw the on camera with the announcers, oh, we're back. But that was, it was a miracle they were able to get anything out of that. But at the same time, it was odd for a building that big that looks like you could park goddamn 747s perpendicular in there and have room. It's a giant place.
Even the audio, it almost seemed like it was dubbed in, because you would watch their mouths from the side cameras, and it was just all, it was so bizarre the way it was coming across. And again, they kept putting up the thing at the bottom, and then they shot right to Wade and Michael Cole, and they were in perfect, Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, the audio was dubbed in effect. Actually, I don't know whether the audio was dubbed in or whether the video was dropped over the audio. But in some fashion,
it was weird.
Because of the difficulty, they had the audio in a broadcast form, but they had to scramble for video. So I don't know, but hey, it can have beware of dog. Remember that? I was that afternoon. I was out in the parking lot in the back of the Florence fucking, what was it, the Civic Center, looking up at the sky going, oh, shit. Because it's a fucking giant tin building anyway. And we made it, 2 matches in and zap. And the whole building was dark. Their emergency lights came on, like the exit lights and the, shit that's on, their battery operated generator public safety type shit. And everybody was sitting there wondering, is somebody going to try to pick my pocket? But anyway, we actually had to get the daggum head of the electric company in Pikeville, Kentucky out of bed one night in Smoky Mountain.
What time? Out of bed? What time?
Well, like 9 o'clock. Well, it's a small town.
How old was he? Was he a little old man?
I didn't meet the gentleman because he had to then call other people. He wasn't going to climb up in that bucket truck himself. We were doing 4 TV shows in Pikeville, the same place that we do the Bluegrass Brawl, right? Every April. But this was the middle of summer, and we booked a TV taping there, and we had like 700 or 800 people or whatever. And we'd done the first 2 shows, and the goddamn, not the generator, not the alternator, the fabricator, the fornicator. What's the goddamn thing that sits up on the pole, the big round thing? It's not a generator.
I know what you're talking about too, and I can't think of the word now.
Google that then. Transformer. There you go. Transformer. Bam. Went, son of a bitch, you've plugged in too much shit for this building. And, it was, oh, shit. Because, see, with the Bluegrass Brawl, we shot it for home video. We had a smaller setup. This time we'd brought the truck. And the truck drew too much power. And the whole thing, the Jim was dead. It was, oh, shit. And the fire department was our sponsors. And the fire chief said, hold on, I'm going to call Fred. I don't know what Fred's fucking name was. And he got somebody that worked for them that knew how to fix this out there that could get in the bucket truck from the fire department and lift him up to the thing to fix the deal, to flip the switch to turn the power back on. So we could do the other 2 shows in like 35 minutes. We had to take a 35-minute intermission when we thought we were fucking dead. And going to be short 2 TV shows. So it pays to know people. See, we knew Fred from Pikeville, and they know the crown prince of the country. So you get your electric turned back on quicker that way.
Well, of course, that wasn't the only thing that happened on SmackDown. Was the only thing that happened in both darkness and light. But sometimes out of the darkness and into the light comes a segment, and they ended the show with a segment a lot of fans were talking about.
Well, after the first segment, then we waited 2 hours and 35 minutes, and then came something else to watch. Cena came out, and jumping Jehoshaphat, the John Cena sucks chant drowned out the music. But I don't know that it's that they hate him, but just that they were enjoying more than anything else yelling for or against or about him. Does that make any sense? They're just participating in the whole fucking thing.
It does, because other than the joy in yelling, singing John Cena sucks, they seem to treat him as a babyface most of the time.
Yeah, yes, and they were into it. This was, and again, hey, it's always been, it was more prominent in the 80s when they first started going to Europe, but the international audiences are always, and I'm not saying a few years behind or a while behind or whatever, like they're fucking stupid. The new guys get over quicker in the United States while the old guys are still more overseas. You see what I'm saying here? And this is nostalgia, and this is a happening, and this is, blah, blah, blah. And then he cuts the promo on Punk, and Punk ain't going to win it, and etc. And all of a sudden, they play the word life music. Chicka, 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 whatever the fuck they're doing there. And the graphic says Punk Life. And here comes CM Punk out dressed like a thuganomic John Cena with the jorts and a Cubs shirt. Actually, there's some modifications here. And he had the fucking knuckle jewelry, brass knuckle jewelry, whatever, that said drug free instead of piss off or whatever Cena. What did Cena say? The knuckle stuff.
Oh, it said I don't know, word life.
Well, I guess because that's what the music says. So regardless, all these things. And it again, it's the old rib of the guy dressing up like his opponent and trying to make fun of him and everything. And but the people are with Punk too, because he's a star. CM Punk. And I can't repeat this. It would have taken a court stenographer to take it down because he did his promo as a rap. But it wasn't like, it wasn't like an easy rap. It was like an actual promo, but it rhymed. And God damn it, I don't know how he did this. Because it went on and on, not in a bad way. I couldn't have done this promo to save my life because I can talk, as most of you people realize, all day long if I have to. But I couldn't make it rhyme and make it come out right like this. And he did 3 or 4 minutes. And it was I don't know how he remembered it. And it had to be heavily his input because I wouldn't think write this and hand it to somebody and go, okay, just do that. Oh, okay. Fucking Jesus Christ. I mean, he called Cena a fish-bellied white Hulk Hogan, but more problematic. I can't remember what that rhymed with because he called me a player hater, but Cena's buried more talent than The Undertaker. But is this the first time ever, Brian, that a main event promo made sense, it drew money, and was delivered completely in rhyme?
No, Cena used to do it all the time.
Well, no, but I mean,
Punk was doing it.
His shit was a little more juvenile, wasn't it? This wasn't like the rap thing. This was a little more literate.
This was him doing. This was him doing
Cena.
No, this was the same way it was Cena doing the pipe bomb. This was him doing a classic Cena promo.
No, I think that Cena used to rhyme a lot of stuff with booby and shit.
I don't know. I don't have the lyric book of all the classic. They should put that out. Put that out, please.
No, Cena's a better rapper, but Punk is a better poet. He had better material.
Punk was really good here. And again, it's so impressive, the memorization that has to go into that.
Yeah.
When Cena used to do it, it was impressive. But he did it. Like, he was doing it regularly. I don't even know how you build up the ability to constantly do that. Punk has never done that. And he came out there and he delivered. He hit a home run with that, I thought. I know some people thought it was too corny. But, it plays off the pipe bomb last week. I thought it was really good.
Oh, and everybody was yelling at me on the Twitter machine. Well, he laid there, he being Punk, for 10 minutes because that's the way that it was. It was the opposite. Cena was laid out in the ring. And, well, Yes, I remember the promo. I remember him sitting there and I remember watching the promo. Truthfully and honestly, the fact that he had laid John Cena out beforehand escaped me. But as many people also pointed out when they started arguing about what those other people had brought up, Cena got laid out in the ring. Punk sat on the fucking stage. You didn't have him sitting over the top of Cena
on a Slim Jim table. On a Slim
Jim table in the same shot. And they said even Cena rolled over and sat up in the ring and collected his fucking self a bit to listen to his browbeating from 80 yards away. So, meh.
Well, that was WWE SmackDown.
Yes, it was.
From the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
What happens when the king dies and the queen takes over? Is it become the queendom?
Oh, it'll never be the queendom. It'll always be the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the king.
I was thinking maybe they would then they'd turn the tables over there and flip the script, and the guys would have to go around wearing beekeepers' outfits for a while.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be really too many changes in terms of treatment of women or gay people or anyone who's a minority or anything like that.
Anyone whose passport is being held.
That's right. And speaking of people with their passports being held, let's talk about the WWE's latest extravaganza from Saudi Arabia. SmackDown was just a show, but an extravaganza. Night of Champions, where there's just champions galore. All up and down the card.
And it's at night. And they're in the dark. As I mentioned earlier, it's an odd looking arena. I mean, it's massive. And that's the thing is you can't really get a grip on how many people it seats, on how many people are there, on exactly what the extent of it is, because it just seems to, it's compared to other arenas there, it's abnormally high. It has a giant wall on one side. I don't know what's going on there, but did they report any type of attendance figure? Has Thurston Howell weighed in on this? Maybe, but by the time that I set the scene for the first contest, we'll know. But they opened up with Cody and Orton for the King of the Ring final. And again, the crowd is live over there. Is it my imagination, or when they started doing this a few years ago, the people were a bit more reserved, weren't they? Or am I misremembering? Because I don't remember them just, and I know people would say, well, they hadn't seen it. Well, they had to see it enough for them to pay for it to be over there on television or whatever. So I'm just wondering if now people have loosened up more than they used to there.
I don't know. Obviously, WWE's been coming over there and people really like it, and it's embraced by the kingdom, so you're allowed to embrace it. You asked about the difference between this and the North Korea show. If you remember, those fans just sat there. Those fans, it was almost like synchronized fandom.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to do anything, or they were afraid to do anything, or they were only allowed to do what they were told. These people were dancing around and shit, so I don't think it's...
They're dancing and singing and moonwalking and all kinds of stuff. And that's when Cody and Orton, they started out locked up and did whatever, and the people were just chanting and waving and singing and jumping about to the point where they stopped the match and just stared at them so they could, and they're doing nothing and being ah! And then finally, this was refreshing to me because it was one-on-one. It was not a match where there was no disqualification. And they started out actually doing wrestling stuff. And they had a wrestling match. And they're two of the best guys in the business at it. And there was the tension, obviously. You never know, is Orton going to turn? He's already made threats. There's nothing he won't do. But at the same time, Orton was really the one that sold in this match. And it was brilliant because he hurt himself. In that, at one point when he gave Cody a superplex, boom, and he landed. They know he's got back problems. He hurt his back and he started selling his back. And that was brilliant because with where they're going in the finish, later on or at whatever point Orton can make a claim, I hurt myself. That's, but nevertheless, nobody was cheating, but Cody worked the back, but it was forearms. It wasn't punches. He wasn't doing shit behind the referee's back, but he's being a competitive athlete. So nobody did anything in this out of character, something that person wouldn't do just for the sake of a goddamn, oh, this is a cool move, to change people's perception of them. And Orton sells to me better than anybody his size in the business. And look, he's fucking massive. And yet, he can sell and he conveys the pain and the facial expression. And, anyway, they did a number of big moves, 2 counts, things like that. And finally, the crossroads once, the RKO. The RKO once, they got 2 counts. But then Cody was in a spot where he was set up for the punt, and Orton was backing up for it, and then you could see on his face, and it wasn't like this, the goofiness of when they go out and they grab the belt, they got the belt drawn back, and then suddenly they have a pang of guilt. It was like he's waiting for Cody to get up there, and there he is, and he's thinking, should I? Goddamn, I don't want to kick his head in. Fuck it, I'm going to. He waited just a second, and then Cody moved. And then Cody got the figure 4, and Orton turned it. And they did a big rubber-legged yay boo in the middle and went into a hockey fight. And this was, boom, really good. And then Orton gets a chair, and they're doing this there too, where a guy can bring a chair in the ring, and the referee, as long as he either asks for it politely or just grabs it back, it's not a disqualification. But nevertheless, while Lil Nate Charles Robinson is putting the chair out, Orton undoes the turnbuckle pad. And he tried to run Cody's head into it, but Cody blocked it. Boom, boom, they jockey for position. Orton goes for the RKO, and Cody pushes him into the buckle, into a crossroads 1, 2, 3. This was refreshing. Great babyface match where neither guy turned heel or did anything out of character. But at the same time, after Orton lost, as he was walking back, he was not looking happy. And you never know what might happen in the future. And Cody was cutting a promo, putting Orton over. And Orton was kind of looking back at him. And then Cody promised he's headed to SummerSlam to face either Punk or Cena, and he will get the ball back. So he better get the ball back at SummerSlam. Might he not, or elsewise that's going to be another kick in the balls.
He has to. And I don't want to spoil it now. We'll get to it later. He has to, and it can't be a finish like the finish they had on this show. It has to be a finish. But yeah, I think so, and I think this is a good match, and I think they even got me for a minute thinking, oh, maybe Orton will win this. What did you think of the turnbuckle spot?
Well, again, he said there wasn't anything he would stop at, but he did vacillate somewhat on kicking his head in. And Orton's the Viper. He's a little bit heelish. It's not out of character for him to do that as a babyface. What I would have loved for them to do, I see where they were going. Cody was working the lower back because the lower back was affected by the superplex. That's why I hate when these fucking indie morons give a guy a superplex and then just roll through and either pick him up and give him something else, or roll through and the guy that got superplex does something. But go, what the fuck are you doing? So I know they were working the lower back, but when Randy went for the RKO and Cody pushes him off, he had to turn and kind of hit his ribs, because I would have loved, I see they wanted to foil the RKO, but I would have loved if Cody could have jerked him around where he could have taken a flat back turnbuckle and sold it out into the crossroads. And that would have, to me, looked more painful and convincing. That's the only problem I had with the turnbuckle.
All right, well, good opening match, and now it's King Cody Rhodes. I don't know if he's going to wear that crown. Are they allowed to take the crown away, or is it like that championship you win over there where you're not allowed to leave with it?
I don't know. But also now that would be unwieldy to sing King Cody Rhodes, King Cody Rhodes, King Cody Rhodes, King Cody Rhodes.
And Queen Brandy.
Now it's more Queen. Well, speaking of the queens coming up on the King and Queen of the Ring, well, these weren't the queens of the ring. These were actually, it is the Queen of the Ring, Ria Ripley. She's always going to be the queen, or possibly even the goddess of wrestling, the ruler up above in the heavens of wrestling, Ria Ripley. All praise to you, Goddess Ria.
Jeez.
And Raquel, our friend Raquel Rodriguez. See now, Ria Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez. See, it just rolls off the tongue. In a street fight. And besides, well, first of all the women, I mean, I know that the first show or two they went over there, they worked in sweatpants and sweatshirts, because who has full body scuba suits on hand in a normal world when you're a pro wrestler? Now they've gotten, all the stuff custom made and everything, and it's lovely gear, but it is ridiculous in not only the scuba suits, what the fuck is wrong with those people over there, but also with Ria Ripley and Raquel, they're both approximately the same height. They both got long black hair, and they were both wearing black from literally from head to toe and from shoulder to wrist and everything. You could see their hands and their faces if the hair was down. At some points, I'm thinking, does anybody in the cheap seats even know which one is which? Did you notice that when they're just all...
There are no cheap seats.
Well, okay, in the farther away places. But nevertheless, they were both very aggressive here. They laid their shit in. But it was a street fight, and the kendo sticks, and they fought on the desk and did the power bomb through the desk hood into the sound pit. And the first 2 or 3 minutes, I was like, okay, they're starting to go here. And then they started using the furniture and the stairs. And Ria took her belt off and whipped her about 50 times. And then hit her with a razor's edge and a kick and got a 2 count. And then Ria got her clover leaf on. So in the middle of them, just, again, there's sticks and bullshit laying around, and they're back to a wrestling hold. I wish they wouldn't. They're poisoning Saudi Arabia too. They'll think, well, they're supposed to have all this shit in wrestling. But then here, as Ria got the clover leaf, Roxanne Perez, who also came into the ring covered from head to toe in black pleather, ran in and broke the hold in front of the referee, because it's a street fight, no DQ. So then Ria chased Roxanne around and bumped her on the floor and pulled out a garbage can and put it on Roxanne and kicked it. But then Raquel ran down and posted Ria and ran her into the stairs and gave her a splash. 2 count. I said, there's more? And then they went back to the fucking match. Roxanne Perez disappeared. Apparently she was either killed or paralyzed. And the referee just again, because it's a street fight, all this stuff goes on. And then they start the match again, and they set a table up across the top rope with it balanced in front of the turnbuckle, but across the top ropes so that they could both get up and balance on it. And then Raquel helped Ria to the point where, because they don't want to fall off and break their fucking necks, right? So they're trying to balance and not fuck this up. They're not goddamn circus performers. But when Ria is picking her up for the riptide, Raquel, as she's bent over, she had to reach back with her right hand and her right arm and put it up so that Ria could hook it without throwing and then she gives her the riptide off the table. Oh, and one of the referees had to hold the edge of the table so that, and people on Twitter were fighting about it. Because some people said, look at the referee holding the table. And the other idiots were like, well, what do you expect him not to hold the table and they fall and hurt themselves? No, don't do this stupid shit. Would be an idea, just a concept, just a thought to run by somebody. What next time, put a table up there, balance the two chairs, and bring your pet dog and have the dog with a ball on top of the two chairs, and then you put the thing in your mouth that allows you to bite down on the edge of the chair and you can balance it while flapping your wings, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sick of this shit. These two you could buy them in a wrestling match as two physically threatening individuals that could potentially do some damage to each other if they weren't trying to make them do goddamn Buster Keaton silent movie routine shit. Your thoughts?
I like Buster Keaton, so I'm not going to complain too much. The General, Steamboat Bill Jr., so many different things. But
yes,
I thought this was okay. I mean, again, it's the awkward dynamic of everyone being dressed head to toe. I don't even know why you just don't bring the women at that point. Roxanne Perez wasn't even wrestling. They flew her over to put on that outfit and run out for this. But I thought it was all right. I like, Ria's, I think, the best there is. But I like Ria and Raquel together. We've seen them multiple times over the years, probably since NXT, or maybe shortly after that. She's at least Ria. She seems like someone who could beat Ria.
Yes. And I'm not criticizing the talent's effort here. I'm criticizing the stuff they either feel they have to do or are asked to do or have put in this whole fucking thing with now everybody's. That used to be the derogatory thing of some people who like wrestling, don't like wrestling, rather say, they're a bunch of stunt men. Well, now you have to be. Because what the fuck you're balancing on ladders and tables propped over fucking shit. But here's the problem, Brian, and I don't know it. I was one of those children, right?
What do you mean?
I was one of those kids.
What do you mean?
And I was one of those kids that goddamn had to analyze shit. And it didn't even start even by the time I discovered wrestling, I noticed this from the Batman fights. So this goes back to when I was 5-6 years old. I noticed that wrestlers are better at making a fight look good than movie and television stuntmen. Because I loved the Western saloon fights and the Batman fights. And, look at the bump the heel took. And there's the chair and a So I always studied those. Maybe it was meant to be. And by the time that I discovered wrestling, I realized, well, wait a minute. This is, over here. And then I started picking apart the stuntman's fight scenes, except for Robert Conrad in the Wild Wild West, who was probably the best television performer in a fucking fight scene during his era. But nevertheless, the stuntmen, Brian, this was the point of this, they're better at taking the bump off the balcony. You know, in the Western, bam! The fucking heel, the outlaw that's trying to ambush the hero is up on a second or third floor there at Doc's office, and he's got the gun and he's pointing, he's waiting, and the hero shoots him and bam, and he takes the bump over the rail and into the dusty street. Now, that was a bump I didn't see wrestlers taking. The stuntmen had shit like, or when they jump a motorcycle over something and leave the motorcycle in midair and they fly through the saloon window and come out the other side with a fucking muffler up their ass.
They had motorcycles in the West?
Well, you know what I'm saying.
The saloon window, yeah.
The stuntmen did all that shit just fine, but they couldn't fucking fight. And the wrestlers could fight, but back then they weren't taking bumps off the fucking balcony and jumping over Caesar's Palace fountain. So I think everybody should stick to their goddamn specialties. That's the moral of that story.
All right, well, that was that match, and there was more to come from this spectacular, if you think about visiting, they got wonderful tourist packages, apparently, from Saudi Arabia.
And just make copies of your passport, just in case you need to have it tattooed on your ass, in case you need to prove. Okay, Carrion Cross and Sami Zayn. They added this one. You know, with what we talked about the other day on the program, you know what I had to watch for. And by the way, the people love Sami. They love Sami. They love Sami Zayn more than they love Sammy Davis Jr. But you know what I was looking for, don't you hear? The story went out. Did we ever source that?
No, that was an off-air
rumor.
Yeah, we talked about that off air. I don't even think it was on air.
Oh, was it? We talked about it, so we had to keep an eye out there. Well, because I saw the story on the interweb after you had brought it up, so it's out there. Because I think they had somebody had responded. He was laughing at it. You know, people say that. But the story went out that Karrion Kross was allegedly either scared of, afraid of, reticent to, not enthused by taking bumps. And that may limit how far he could go in a business where people have to fall down on a regular basis when they're in the main events. And said, did you watch for this, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, that was the only reason to watch this match.
Well,
that was the only reason to watch this match.
I mean, because I made a few notes, but before I give you details, what was your impression when you came away from the match as to whether or not those rumors may have any validity?
Well, again, I don't think it was a fair sample because word got out before this match, so I think he took just fine the amount of bumps he took. He took fine bumps when he took bumps.
Well, in that case, then I think he's probably smarter than we thought, because he did get through this where the way that they worked the match, you wouldn't have noticed, right? But if you're going through the match just to write down, when and how this guy falls down in the course of a fucking 13-minute match, then but he is a very good psychologist, I got to say. Again, I'm not, if he does this good a job of hiding it all the time, more power to him.
Yeah, Jake wasn't taking bumps. I mean, there are plenty of people who learn how to work around having to do anything like that. Like bumps.
No, Jake was not going to have this match, but it depends on how old he was and where his head was at. But nevertheless, so Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn is an underdog anyway. He likes to fight from underneath, so he gets a little flurry at the start. He excites the people, and then the heel usually cuts him off, and then he fights from underneath. So that was the story of this match, but there's nothing unusual there. But at 2 minutes, Karrion Kross took a safe bump over the top rope where I believe he got clotheslined and he went over the top, landed on his feet, crumbled to the ground. And then they were fighting on the floor and he was standing on his feet. Sami moonsaulted him. He caught Sami and they went down, kind of a soft bump on,
Is that
on
a bump?
the floor.
Yeah, you consider that a bump?
Well, there was several times that Kross went down with more force than this when he was suplexing Sami, but I don't consider it a bump when you're throwing the fucking guy and just happen to land, you know. So we're only talking about actually, because I'm telling you, when he's throwing Sami with them fucking Saito suplexes, he hit the ground a couple of times, but we're not counting those. Let's see, number 3. He collapsed off the buckle and took I wrote ox bump. So that's an Ox Baker bump.
Ox Baker didn't take bumps.
Well, no, when Ox went down, it was a bump in what the boys used to say in stages. It was a stagey bump where part of him went down, then the next section, then the next section. And so anyway, 1, the bump over the top. Okay. 2, the moonsault catch down. Okay. 3, collapse, ox bump. Okay. Number 4, flat back bump from a clothesline. Okay. Number 5, got an axe handle from Sami off the top to the head, took a bump. Boom. Okay. And then Sami's into his comeback now. And he got a blue thunder bomb. He took that blue thunder bomb. And then what did they call it? The exploder, where Sami grabs him and belly to belly overheads the guy into the turnbuckle, where the guy lands like on the back of his head and his shoulders on the ground and into the turnbuckles. Well, he did that to Kross, and I wouldn't want to take that fucking thing. There's a lot of shit going on, but he was a little short. It looked like Kross caught the back of his head and then kind of went into the buckles, but the announcers had to say, don't think he got all of it. One of those type of deals. And then number 8 was a crumble bump from the fucking haluva kick in the corner. 1, 2, 3. So he took 8 bumps in 13 minutes, and 4 of them were somewhat suspect as to the force or velocity with which he hit the ground. He's pretty fucking good.
You know, this could become a new game for fans. You know, maybe they can
Yes.
count out loud. 1 bump. 2, like Suplex City for bumps.
I swear to God, if that became a thing, that would probably drive him out of his fucking mind. If people just, he takes a hip toss, 3.
And then sometimes, like, it's a bump where, like we talked about earlier, is a soft bump. Is it a bump? And then fans can fight with each other, you know, bump, no bump, bump, no bump. And if he becomes known as the bump guy, Tony will hire him.
Bump, no bump, bump, no bump. And Tony says, I got a bump.
Exactly.
But I mean, you know, that's so you weren't writing them down. So, but see, you got the impression, yeah, he's really upped his fucking game.
Yeah, he obviously heard the criticism, said, I'll do more bumps tonight. He did 8.
And can you think, I'm starting to like this guy more, because can you think of any time he's ever been thrown through a piece of furniture?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm sure he must have done something stupid in NXT. He was there for a while and he was on top. But I can't think of anything, no.
Well, there you go. More power to you, Carrion.
What do you think of the Karrion Kross push now? Everyone's been talking about him getting a better push, and then he goes over there and it was kind of a flat finish, don't you think?
Well, no. I mean, Sami is still a guy that you can put into main events, top positions. They love him. I'm sorry, I don't see on the big show in front of that crowd. They've already got some things on here that could be considered downers. They're not going to put crossover in that particular, you know, spotlight, venue, whatever.
All right. Well, that was the.
But
yes,
I was about to say, you know what was next, don't you?
No, actually, I don't remember.
The thing that you were going to say before I interrupted you. That was what was next.
What was next is what was next on the show. Let's see, how many matches is that now? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
What was next on the show? I think it's time for
the United States Heavyweight Championship to be decided is what it's time for.
I was going to say more women, but you're right.
And now here's a question. Why is it that the Sheik could defend the U.S. title in Toronto, but it would have been just ridiculous at the time if Dewey Robertson had defended the Canadian heavyweight title in goddamn Erie, Pennsylvania?
Again, I don't know. It is a little weird when you have U.S. title changes in Saudi Arabia. This isn't the first time I think it's happened there. But
should this be a thing that's allowed to happen should any country's championship be put in a position where it can fall to someone on foreign soil? What about should the World of Sport title, the mid heavyweight title or whatever that Mike Marino, should that be put up for fucking auction over here in Cleveland? I think not. But we got a U.S. title match in Saudi Arabia. Solo versus Fatu. And I'm trying to think how, without insulting anyone too heavily, Solo isn't a great opponent for Fatu to have a great match, is he? There's two.
Is there anyone, respectfully, because I think he's been used well at times, is there anyone for Solo to have a great match with?
Well, maybe let's not throw great around, unnecessarily. Let's just say a better Fatu, I like as a heel, where he's with a smaller, more agile baby face that does take bumps or whatever. There's a size difference, but as a baby face, Fatu still with even a wise ass fucking heel that's smaller and goddamn athletic. But Solo is kind of like, as we talked about before, a little bit, what do the kids say? The Timu Fatu? So Solo is a lot of punch and kick. And then Fatu, when he's fighting a guy that's like that, he's still taking his bumps and stuff, but he relies on a lot of punch and kick. They're not, they're a little too similar to be complementary, I think. But it was what it was. It's a match that existed on this date. And they got some heat, he got some heat on Fatu, he being Solo. And again, Fatu can fly around on the bumps and, the place he needs to be, and Solo's kind of flat-footed. But then finally, Jacob makes his comeback, and he's going to the top. And here comes J.C. Mateo, who waddles down. He runs in an awkward fashion. Were you watching the run-in closely here? Did you notice his gait?
I did not actually watch that, no.
He is a tubbier person.
I watched it, but I didn't pay attention to his gait, I guess.
Well, yes, you did not watch the specific manner in which he ran down there, but he drew the referee, and Tonga Loa's there and took Jacob off the top rope with the neck breaker, and Solo got a 2 count. And then Jacob's gonna spike him. Solo's gonna spike him. But Jacob ducked the spike and dropped Solo and then dove on the other heels and then did a Samoan drop on Solo. And then Mateo comes in and gets super kicked and then gets the ass in the face. And again, here, they have decided suddenly, I don't know how long ago it was, but not suddenly, but certainly recently, that if another guy that's not even connected to the match gets in the ring, as long as he just gets beat up and he doesn't hit anybody, they won't call the DQ. So now Jacob is beating up Mateo while the guy's in the ring and the referee's staring at it. And then he moonsaults Solo. Boom. And then a giant, an old, mean, smelly giant, pulls Jacob Fatu out on the floor. And what the fuck? And the announcers say, "Oh my God, this is." And then it sounded to me like that they were just saying alternate versions of Tama Loa Loa Tonga Tonga Loa Tonga Tonga. What the fuck did they call him? No, I mean, I heard him say like
Tala Tonga.
Okay, it was like, well, that tall guy is the cousin of Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa called Tala Tonga. I don't know what the fuck. But anyway, he was supposed to choke slam Jacob on the desk, but I don't know if their timing got off, but Jacob, we know, can jump pretty well, so I don't think it was that alone, but he barely got up over the top of the desk, and instead of a big, slam, it was like a clump. And then he rolled him into the ring, and the referee's back has been turned through all of this with the distraction of the Loa Tonga Tonga Loa Loa Tonga Tonga Loa. And Solo spiked him 1, 2, 3, and we got a new champion. And again, I wrote down here at the bottom, way too much interference for too long on all these matches. It seems like every match of any consequence now has multiple people running in every company. And sooner or later, again, that leads to people going, You know, I didn't know what was to come yet, but I wrote that then. But it goes on forever. It's like again, I didn't know what was to come, but a match will just stop happening, and a bunch of people not connected with it will start fighting with each other for a while, and then they started again.
Well, again, at least this one, not to justify it, at least it introduced someone new, a new character. The most boring giant ever. No, they introduced a new character here. Unlike the end, which was just, okay, they couldn't come up with a way for this match to end, so they're going to give us all of this.
And this guy also, he doesn't have a giant head. I think that's gonna be problematic.
See, I think we got to see like a promo with him standing there in the ring, because he didn't look gigantic, even though he is. The way he just came out there and, all in black, stood at ringside with everyone, he wasn't coming across as like, oh my God, it's the biggest man I've ever seen. So
no, but it's because of his head. He's got a regular head. He needs a giant's head. Think about this. How many giants have a normal sized looking fucking head with a normal facial expression? You got to have some fucking, the old saying, beauty's only skin deep, but ugly is to the bone. You got to have some bones sticking out. You got to have Andre fucking head or goddamn giant Singh head or something. And then you got a giant. He just a tall fucking guy.
Well, Hikuleo has finally arrived. We'll see where Tama Tonga is, but at least Tonga Loa is back, so we're guaranteed there'll be some hilarity in the weeks ahead. And now Jacob
Tonga Loa. Oh, wait a minute. That was Tonga Loa.
Yeah.
Instead of Tama Tonga.
That was the first time we've seen Tonga Loa since the War Games.
I mixed up my Tongas. Because I was thinking he's the other one.
They got to introduce someone that's just Tonga, don't they? Oh, he's the baddest of them all. Tonga.
Tonga.
Oh, 3 Tongas. Oh, my God.
3 Tonga. Well, that's when they call him by his first name and Mr. Wouldn't that be funny if fucking Tonga in island language was Mr.? Then he could be Mr. All right. Well, before we get to the main event, we got one more. This ain't going to take long. Seriously, at some point, Queen of the Ring, Jade Cargill versus Asuka. And in about 8 minutes, Jade hit her finish. And it had to be warm. It had to be warm in those pleather full body suits out there in that heat.
It can't be easy. Like MJF, we saw do that a few weeks ago where he went from his trunks, which he wrestles one of his 8 matches a year in, to the full body suit or the half body suit, whatever it is. It can't be easy if you're used to wrestling one way to all of a sudden, in terms of just breathing and everything, right? It can't be easy to all of a sudden be all covered up and work the same way.
Well, MJF's tribute to MVP, I don't think hampered him too bad. But because it's hot over there. The announcers made the point that it was very hot in the building. You see guys sweating, and I'm thinking they cut from neck to wrist all the way down to feet because the tights go into the boots. That's It might, because they're custom made form fitting outfits. It's not going to be like you're trying to wrestle wearing a goddamn flotation device. But at the same point, trying to sweat, cool off, just get a goddamn breeze of some description with the head to toe, because I didn't expose a lot of fucking flesh back when I was competing in the ring. You're a
pioneer when it comes to these outfits the women wear.
But I see my body needed to be covered up, unlike most of these girls. But after I wasn't doing the whole goddamn thing by myself. I was in tag matches or handicap matches or whatever, or the manager match would last for 8 minutes or whatever. But if they're going out there trying to do a lot of shit in a hot, humid fucking building at high speed, they got to be dying. You're going to have to peel that shit off like the fucking safety wrapper on some Tylenol.
Did you see the promo?
Anyway.
Did you see the very emotional promo afterwards from Jade Cargill?
No, I saw she was speaking, and I didn't want to just have to break down and cry at that point. I knew it was going to bring tears to my eyes, so I couldn't face it. What did she say?
She's the one wrestler we've seen who, again, she wasn't in the business. All of a sudden she was. There have been several times, even when she was a heel, like her daughter was in the crowd, where she would just get emotional. Like this all really meant something to her. It's nice to see. It's actually really nice to see. Like someone is
good.
Jade is the only one not completely jaded by the process.
Ah, I see what you did there. Well, at least now she's a babyface instead of being a heel with a cute little daughter. See, when she was a heel, if she'd have known how to conduct herself in a wrestling atmosphere, she would have then yanked a lollipop away from her daughter and committed her to her room or whatever.
I liked her as a heel with a stable of like stooges who just show you their ass. That was my favorite period of Jade Cargill, where she came out with women who would turn around and just bend over on the stage. That's still the baddies. I think that's what their name was.
The baddies.
The baddies.
I can't believe that the TKO didn't take that and run with it. Copyright that and trademark it and sell T-shirts and membership cards. The baddies.
There's still time.
Well, they've missed the opportunity so far. And how bad can you get? That could be their new tagline for the whole WWE. How bad can you get? All righty then. We got to get to it because this way we can move past it. The main event of the evening. For the WWE, why do they call it the undisputed title when they also have a world championship on their pro? I would think the world champion is disputing the validity of the WWE title as being the number one title. They do it in every interview, don't they, Brian?
Right. It's not undisputed champion. It's undisputed WWE champion, right?
Well, but if the world champion says my title is the big title in the WWE, then he's disputing that the other guy's the champion of the WWE. See, there's loopholes here that need to be addressed.
Hey, listen, AEW has a world champion. They're about to have a unified champion who's not the world champion.
Well, there's loopholes that need to be addressed. See, some people are disputing some undisputed things, and then some people are being disincluded from the unification. And they're instead of being unificated, they're being segregated. And goddamn, without even being masturbated. So,
once again,
something needs to be done.
We're in Saudi Arabia, the big main event.
Yes.
For Night of Champions, a match that they've been building up, and maybe have done a better job of building up than anything else recently with Cena. But of course, it's a main event in Saudi Arabia. John Cena versus CM Punk.
And the people were lit up to see it. And they did the chants. They were chanting for Punk before they played the music. And then, like Mussolini, if he was Saudi, is Punk an honorary Saudi now? Ich ein Berliner? Is he an Ich ein Saudier?
I mean, it's gotten out now. That whole little pretentious setup scene where the fan Muhammad in his WWE hat called him out. And of all the people, Punk saw that, like Bruce Springsteen with Courtney Cox.
Yeah.
Punk saw Muhammad. He's like, you, who are you? I didn't mean it. I woke up in a bad mood. And I didn't mean Saudi Arabia, even though I specifically said a blood money covered dick in Saudi Arabia. But I apologize to you and to everyone you know and to everyone who is here now and then.
But no, hold on. He apologized to the people of Saudi Arabia. But that because people can be different than because look, we have an evil government here in the United States, but there are some good people still here trying to fight against it. So you can insult the United States now, and
when you say that, you're not insulting the people of Saudi Arabia. You were insulting the people who actually committed the murder, the people who supplied the blood to and the money. They're actually supplying the blood from the murders and the money from the oil fields that the people don't get the money from. So they are the blood money suppliers. So it's specifically the government.
Well, yes. So he apologized to the people, did he not? Power to the people. Or did he apologize to, I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. Did he apologize to Muhammad and all the people of Saudi Arabia?
All of the people.
Well, all of the people. The cult of Cornette are the people, and none of them are the government.
He's apologizing to the government.
I apologize to Prince Mohammed Salamander over there.
Yeah, again, I think it's the modern day of wrestling. And the reality is WWE's business model is built around Saudi Arabia's money. Not built around it, but it's a thing that makes it profitable.
It's highly desirable.
TKO, a lot of their business strategy is built around Saudi money. So there's a lot that they don't want to fuck up anything with that relationship. And
so you're saying as soon as they got him over there and had his passport in their hands, they said, now here, you've got to go out and talk to a kid named Muhammad.
I think Punk knew for a long time that he was going to have to go over there and apologize. I think he just came out and did. I mean, Triple H afterwards said, oh, I'm so proud of him. He's grown so much as a person. And,
meanwhile, your mother-in-law is in the evil administration.
And again, it's one thing just, hey, I don't care. I want to work the show. I'll get a lot of money. But, it's when you actually go out and go to bat for a thought or a concept or something happening. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, they got all that money. So I'm sorry. I mean, that's what's getting people a little up in arms about the thing, but it'll pass.
Do you think, is there an element of, am I ribbing myself now because I'm the only one that won't involved in that? Or is it like, well, God damn it, it's $5 million.
You have to wonder if it was something that was an option. Really? Hey, you want to come back? We don't know when the conversation happened. The conversation could have been Nick Khan talking to him when he first came back. You understand we're working Saudi Arabia. You'll have to eventually go there. You'll have to say you're sorry. Not just go there, you'll have to say you're sorry. Because the other thing is, they're not doing that just so he's not booed for one night. Just so they don't boo you that one time you're there, just please say you're sorry to everyone. No, they're doing that so they don't cut off Punk's head and throw it off the top of a building and then play soccer with it.
I don't think he would have been too upset if the people had decided to boo him and cheer Cena, because the match could have been just fine either way, but I think he wants to leave with his head still on his shoulders. And
again, a lot of fans, as people see it both ways, but again, Punk being so out in front on it is what makes it a Punk issue, but the bigger thing is if you have problems with Saudi Arabia, I'm not very happy about it. The sad reality is it's the future of wrestling with TKO. So much of beyond WWE, so much of their money comes from Saudi Arabia, so it's an issue bigger than Punk, but a lot of people make it just about Punk because, again, he makes himself part of the issue at times, and it clouds things, but it produced an interesting dynamic. He got him over again. They went from booing him to all of a sudden, he just said, I'm sorry, and they were ready to cheer.
Yeah, okay, that's all we were waiting on. And then they got the headline, Punk apologizes to Muhammad. But you know what they've always said, Brian?
Of all the fans. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If you can't bring Punk to Muhammad, bring Muhammad to Punk.
Rock the Casbah?
Rock the Casbah. So the match, the people were lit up. They were chanting. They were the ole, ole, ole. That's everywhere. What the fuck? And they started slow again. They didn't need to rush because they already had the people and they had some time to put in. But also they were wrestling and it was one-on-one again, allegedly with no disqualification. More on that in a moment. Punk did a little Terry Funk in the ropes at the start. But hey, on this one, Cena was working harder. He obviously, and just this is factual, is not the athlete that he was 20 years ago, but he was making some contact. He was working harder. They're doing more.
Those punches, though. He was throwing punches at Punk. Yeah. And Punk was doing all he could. I actually thought Punk was really good here because Punk is really good at looking genuinely exhausted and like he's in a fight. And he was moving his head to those punches that sometimes it was an open hand, sometimes it didn't come near his head. Yeah, but that's Cena. I guess you just got to accept it.
But I mean, he was trying here. You can't say he was dogging it. He just, that's where we're at. That's why there's 14 dates left or whatever. But anyway, at one point, I wrote, because I'm trying to figure out, I watched it a couple of times, then I kind of figured it out afterwards, because either Cena forgot to lift Punk, I said, or Punk is practicing to climb Mount Everest. And then about a minute later, they went back and Punk got the octopus on him, and then Cena hip tossed him off. So I'm thinking that Punk was trying to get the octopus on top of him, and Cena's like, "What the fuck are you doing up there?" Because that's it. It was like Punk was climbing up on him, but Cena was just like bent over, like, "What the fuck is happening?" Anyway, and Cena had to do his stuff, you can't see him and all that stuff because people want to see that. But then Punk got to do his stuff and the elbow off the top, and Cena foiled to go to sleep and got an STF, and then Cena got an AA and Punk got an STF. So many initials. Where's the STP? But the thing is, this was, instead of just blandly saying this move and that move, it was a good back and forth match where everything made sense. It was a good world title match. It was probably the best John Cena match of this particular retirement run here, I would think.
I agree. I completely agree.
The people were going, "This is awesome." They were getting big pops on the false finishes. When Cena hit the third attitude adjustment, got a 2 count. It was a big pop.
Yeah, we said beforehand, too, how this match should be in the States. It could be in Chicago. But you can't take anything away from the crowd reactions this was getting over there.
No, they were there.
Yeah, no, it may not have been as good anywhere, actually, as it was there.
In Chicago, if they were properly motivated, might have given them a fucking, if they thought Punk was going to win it, they'd have been off the beam. But nevertheless, and Cena went out and got the title belt and brought it in, and the referee and the fans are, "No, no, no." And he kind of looks and he tosses it out. And he goes for the AA, but Punk hits the go to sleep and gets a 2 count. And then they get up and boom, boom, boom. And now Cena's doing his thing where he hits the shoulder tackles off the ropes, and Punk drops down and Cena hits the referee with, I think it's Rudy Charles, whatever name they're calling him these days, with the shoulder tackle, and the referee goes down, rolls out on the floor. And I was like, "Oh shit." Because the only thing they can do when a match is not no DQ is knock the referee out, which I'm not opposed to referee dumps. Yeah, they feel better if they take one every.
It's a stand I don't hear too many wrestling professionals take.
Well, I think they should take one every day and more fiber. But in addition to the referee dumps, I'm not opposed to referee bumps. I have done a bunch of them as a booker. But the problem is now referee bumps have evolved into the referee has been placed in a fucking medically induced coma by a open-handed slap and is going to be down for 10 minutes until, such time as he's needed again. And here we go. So Punk hits and by the way, I've loved this match up until this point. There's been a yeoman's job on everyone's part. And Cena is taking the referee out and Punk hits to go to sleep and covers. There's no ref. And Punk gets up and looks like, where the fuck is this guy? And waves to the back, calling for another referee. Seth music. Oh, and here comes Seth Franklin Rollins and Paul Heyman and Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker all walking out. And down the entranceway, and the music is blaring in the entrance video. Brian, you're old enough to remember when the referee would get knocked down. It'd be because somebody jumped out of the way, he got drop kicked or whatever, the boom, and he goes down and he's momentarily stunned long enough for the heel or the heel's compadre and cohort to cheat in some meaningful way while he's not looking and he's dazed. And then he's back up to his feet and it's none the wiser when he looks around. That was basically the idea of knocking the referee down.
Correct.
But now they got to be in a goddamn coma. Even if you're not in the ring and you're dazed, the goddamn music is playing over the loudspeaker. What's the referee supposed to think unless he's completely slap dab unconscious, in which case some doctor needs to be bringing over a goddamn oxygen tank. And we'll come back to the referee in a second. They make the long music entrance. Everything has come to a halt. Nobody's in a hurry. It stops to focus on this. And Seth has time to reach out and then make his motion, his fist with his hand. So then his stooges run in and sick Punk. But Punk fights them off. Boom, boom, boom. And one guy goes this way, another guy goes that way. And then they end up on the floor. And he dives on them and overshot them. And I know they're shaped like bowling balls. But goddamn, I didn't think he had that much spring in his legs left. But he overshot him and almost landed on his head over the top of him. Then they picked him up and slammed him through the Arabic announce table. And there went Fubar, Makafaka Lube, and Slapko Fudd scurrying for their lives. And then Seth is standing in the ring with the briefcase. And is he going to cash in? And as he calls for another referee. Well, here comes little Nate, old Charles Robinson, running down the entranceway. One would have thought, again, the reason for urgency in cheating when the referee is down is because if you don't do something quick, certainly someone in the back is going to be alerted to send another referee down. So your clock is ticking when the first one goes down. Is it going to take 30 seconds? Is it going to take 40 seconds? Well, we've been a while. Here comes the next referee, and Cena stands up in the entranceway, bam, and wipes him out. So he's down. So then Cena and Seth start arguing with each other. Seth swings the briefcase at Cena. Cena ducks it and gives him the AA. But then Braun and Bronson, Breaker and Reed, let's call them Breaker and Reed. Breaker and Reed get in and start getting some heat on Cena. But then music plays. Am I exaggerating this, Brian?
Oh, no. And then the music.
Okay.
If you're talking about Sami, the music played for like 5 seconds. It was the most unnecessary playing of the music.
No. You've skipped somebody.
Oh.
The first music was Penta.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remember Penta?
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Cinderella story. Penta comes out and he gets in a fight with Braun Breaker on the rampway, the entranceway. And they're fighting. And then the music plays again, and there comes Sami within 5 seconds, and he gets on Braun, and they fight off to the side of the entrance where the Penta, who's been leveled before, can get back up and run across the stage and dive off the stage onto the floor onto both of them. But now what do you say is going on in the ring? Well, Bronson Reed goes to the top and he's going to splash Cena. But Punk pushes Bronson Reed off, and Cena picks Reed up and gives him an AA. And then Cena and Punk are in the ring, and everybody else is rolled out and left. And Paul is still standing around there. I think he was blown up from the trip down, and he didn't want to leave and go back in case he had to sit down and rest halfway. But everybody else that ran out there as magically has all disappeared. And now Punk and Cena are in the ring. And Punk offers his hand for a handshake, and Cena takes it and pulls him in for the hug, and the people are like, yay! And then Cena makes the face, like the face he made with Cody.
Right into the camera.
Right into the camera. He goes for the gut kick, and Punk catches it and starts to pick him up for the AA. And there's Seth with the briefcase. Suddenly, where the fuck he came from, boom, hits him with the briefcase in the head, gives him the stomp, rolls out of the ring. Cena covers, and the referee, the first referee, Rudy Charles, who was bumped with a shoulder tackle 7 minutes ago, rolls right in and counts 1, 2, 3. So I thought it was a real good match until it became sports entertainment instead of wrestling. And then everybody came out, and you just lost the fucking plot. And then they went back to it, and there it was. And that's the best that I'm sorry, but whenever I used to figure a finish, regardless of what company it was from or where it was, if you can't account for everybody's whereabouts and participation in a realistic manner in front of the live audience in a particular period of time, then either make an adjustment where you can or don't do it. It was 7 minutes for a shoulder tackle and all this shit. But that's what they expect these days because they're training people. This is what wrestling is supposed to look like. So it was very exciting, but it hurts me that, is this the way the musicians feel about that auto-tune thing where Aunt Fanny can sing like goddamn Bette Midler if she wants to?
No, I don't think this is.
Or that you just don't have to be good at it anymore?
You know, again, it's become very standard, but I have a feeling people are going to get burned out if they aren't already, and some of us are, by these non-finishes that include big moments. Triple H is good at giving you big moments, but you see more and more holes in everything he actually puts together the more you watch it. And I thought that was the most disappointing thing.
And unfortunately, for all the good that we say about Paul E., he is a big moment with holes guy a lot of times.
That's his specialty.
So you got a lot of big moments, you got a lot of holes.
But again, I just didn't think, nothing against Penta because I don't mind him, but when he showed up, it was like him? He's the one to come out here to make the save for Punk, I guess? Sami, it makes sense. They've been aligned a little bit, and they both hate this group of Heymans.
Well, yeah, but just on a level of the way that people are viewed, Penta was the odd duck. Right. It was like, what? I know they're pushing him, but it's the main event, world title match on Cena's retirement tour. Maybe let's just leave that one alone.
And again, it was almost 10 minutes of interference and non-finishes. Not even non-finish. Interferences.
It was a different fucking match for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Here now, let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves a snack. We'll come back in 5 minutes when the match we were watching starts back up. What? I don't know. But yeah. But at the same time, goddamn, they made a bunch of $1 million on it, and everybody is professional. I assume, except I didn't watch Jade and who's he? What's he? Asuka. Yeah. But they're, I'm sure they did fine. Nobody was almost killed. We got that going for us. But, it was better than your average standard 5-match kind of blah pay-per-view because of the 2 big matches. And coincidentally, they were 2 actual singles matches that meant something between stars, but the one finish was so gimmicked up, it was a little disappointing because they were doing so well. And again, I know, even if it's Cena and Punk, I don't know whether either one of them would have just come to with the idea, even Cena for Smoke and Mirrors, come with the idea of let's just run 17 people in it to finish this thing and take 5 or 6 minutes and then get back on track. I think that was probably an Office influence.
Heyman, especially, like you said. But that was
Hey, man!
WWE's latest excursion to Saudi Arabia, and good to hear that the plane was allowed to leave the runway this time. But of course, Jim, WWE, all those wrestlers, all those scared staff members.
Yep.
So happy to be back on American ground. So happy.
Probably thinking about their future.
Thinking about their future. I was going to talk about thinking about the nap, but you're right. The future.
Oh, you told me about the future earlier.
I just started thinking about how I felt after the pay-per-view. And curveball, wild card, Jim, if at all possible, I'd love to talk about the big nap that everyone had to take, the big sleep after getting home.
The big sleep.
After they kissed the ground, happy they're back in the States. Everyone needed a good night's sleep, and we know where everyone can get one.
Well, you know what? Most of the time when you're feared for your safety and your life and you get away from that and you get back home, you just want to lay down on a comfortable mattress. You don't want to sleep with the fishes. You want to sleep with Helix. That's what you want to do because, folks, our friends at Helix, they got a big deal going on right now. And Helix, of course, is pronounced Helix and spelled Helix. Just think about Felix, but with an H. Get the F out. And right now, the 4th of July sale means you are going to save more money than you're ever going to save on these fine mattresses. This is the biggest discount they've ever given. And Brian, you know the drill. We've been talking about Helix for years now. You sleep on them. I sleep on them. Some people sleep with them. That's how they have more Helixes. And then the line keeps going. But nevertheless, the people love them. You go to helixsleep.com, you get on the website, and you answer a few simple questions about what type of mattress you're looking for. Let's say, for example, you sleep and you sweat when you sleep. Well, if it's some kind of personal issue you're dwelling on, we can't really help you. But if you're just hot-natured, they got a mattress that'll cool you down. Or if you like to sleep on a firm surface or a soft surface. Or let's say that you've got a severe case of scoliosis and you're shaped like a question mark. They have curved mattresses available. Well, have you seen these, Brian?
I don't know anything about that. Let's not promise things that don't exist.
It looks like an S, and that way when you're all hunched over, you still got a place to fucking sleep.
I don't think that's how it works. And of course, visit your chiropractor or whoever works on your back, ladies and gentlemen. But for those of you looking for a good night's sleep, you and of course your family, you got to take care of your family.
You got to bring the whole family on the same mattress. Just bring them on. There's room for everybody. Have them bounce up and down on it a couple of times. Don't bring any jelly sandwiches.
Well, they will fall in love with it, and maybe they'll want their own. And of course, we have such a great deal to offer the listeners this time of year right now to get a brand new mattress.
That's right. 27% off site-wide for the 4th of July sale. And I'm telling you, again, The 4th of July is coming up, and your old mattresses need to be thrown out. Make it every 4th of July you get a new mattress. That way you just throw out the bag of dust and dust mites and potential bed bugs and crumbs and granny's farts and all kinds of dog flatulence and various effluvia that has come from your pets. You get that out of your house, you get a brand new mattress, you get 27% off site-wide at helixsleep.com for the 4th of July sale when you use the code JCE. That's helixsleep.com/JCE, 27% off. And again, do you snore? Or more importantly, does some no good, sorry, gum bumping sack of snake feces in your house snore and keep you awake at night? Well, get one of the mattresses that improves snoring. Or back pain. Let's say you got back pain, you get one of the mattresses that helps with back pain. Or let's say you want to cause some back pain. If there's somebody you don't like, get them the opposite kind of mattress that they would like, and if they sleep on it, they will get back pain.
No, let's
and
not.
You'll be the cause.
No, let's not say that any of these mattresses will cause.
Give your mother-in-law with a slip disc a really soft mattress to sleep on, and she will be miserable.
Give her an Advil, and of course, focus on your own sleep.
Well, give her the Advil for the first. Give her the Advil for the first couple of nights. She's got the soft mattress. She won't notice it, and then it'll already be broken in by the time she realizes that she's bent up in the night like a roly-poly bug. Well, there you go. Well, Brian, you can get them for all the neighbors, too, that you don't like. Just see who has back pain and go from there. You can really screw people up.
Well, let's focus on doing good things for yourself and your family and your friends and the people that you're going to actually be spending money on, ladies and gentlemen, with a great mattress. Yes. We endorse it. We have them here at Last Manor. They have them at Castle Cornette. Have them wherever the hell you're sleeping. Helix Sleep. Jim, tell them.
Yeah. Get several of them, especially if some members of your family are still sleeping around. Go to helixsleep.com/JCE, 27% off site-wide for the 4th of July sale. Do it quickly. Void where prohibited by grumpy people keeping you awake.
We love them. Helix Sleep. Doesn't seem to want to end. The time machine. Let me change this. We are in the future. We are back to where we were. Back from Saudi Arabia.
After a day in the life in Saudi Arabia, we're back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoopee. After all of that, the big trip to Saudi Arabia, what better time than ever to have an early edition of Raw, which started at 6 p.m. this past Monday. Did you see any of it?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you about that in a second. But first of all, they come back from Saudi Arabia and they go to Pittsburgh to do a Raw show. And they started at 6 o'clock because Friday's the 4th of July. They did a double taping. But number one, how did they get 14,000 people to show up in Pittsburgh in the building at 6 o'clock on a Monday? Do these people have no jobs? Are there no prisons, no workhouses? How did they all get there? And secondly, what the fuck? We used to complain about my schedule. I was, Mid-South, it was so hard. Or Crockett. I'll take Atlanta TV at 10 o'clock in the morning, Baltimore at 2, and Philly at 7:30, instead of Saudi Arabia on Saturday night and Pittsburgh for fucking 4 hours on Monday. That's insane. What are the people in Pittsburgh saying about it? Did they all have to quit their jobs? Were there mass firings in that traffic? How did they get there?
And maybe it was Canada Day. I don't know.
Well, now on Canada Day, nobody works. We've established that, but
I don't know how that's
a whole different thing. Pittsburgh Day?
Pittsburgh Day.
Maybe it was Rusev Day. All right, I got a new problem with the Netflix, Brian. Have they changed their MO? Have they?
In what way?
Well, you watch the thing live, don't you? As best you can.
I try to when I'm going to watch it, and this week I got the email that Raw was coming up early at 6, like 10 minutes to 6. So I just turned it on while I was working. But otherwise, I would have missed the live performance.
Well, here's the problem. And again, let's backtrack. On normal television, when you DVR a program, you can just zip right through the commercials. You can just, and you've got an on-screen reference for fast forward, so you know what you're skipping. And not only in the case of commercials, but with Raw, you can skip the travel logs and the product placement and the endless backstage inanity and the 10-minute entrances and get to the meat of the matter, right? If you record it on real television. But Netflix, as I've mentioned, doesn't have any on-screen capability. You can fast forward, but you don't know what you're missing. So you have to check in every few minutes to see if they're actually getting to the goddamn meat of the matter. But now, Brian, when I tried to watch it that way this time, guess, because I remember I've said before, every time I try to skip ahead 5 minutes, I end up in some kind of commercial. Now once you end up in a commercial, you can't fast forward the rest of the commercial. You have to sit there and watch 2 minutes, 2.5. There's a clock on the screen. Ad will end in 2:29. And you can't fast forward it. And then when the program comes back on and it's a travelogue, then you can fast forward it again. But if you stop, you're in another fucking commercial. I spent the whole time trying to watch the thing, and the only thing I watched was the commercials, and the only thing I could skip was the program. So I saw a couple things we're going to talk about, but have you heard from anybody else that this is a new thing they're doing where you're just stuck with it?
This has been a long-term internal project at WWE to make it so that you get stuck in commercials no matter where you go, what you do, on the mat, on Netflix, everywhere you go. I haven't heard anyone else complain about this specific thing.
Well, I would have noticed it if I was not able to fast forward the commercials before now, because it's been several months that we've been going through this. And anyway, and when I would land on the program, they were either replaying shit from earlier that I didn't want to see the first time or talking about something I wasn't interested in. But finally, we got to Gunther. And by the way, they had an in-ring promo with Ria Ripley and Io Sky, who are going to face each other. And Finn and JD beat the New Day for the tag team title, and Rusev beat Sheamus. And we were already pretty much more than halfway through the show, I believe. But Gunther, in the ring, he did a classic promo last week, just ripped Goldberg from asshole to appetite, and did kind of the same thing here. He said, "I'm not afraid of what is left of Bill Goldberg." My God, after the Vultures got him. And he said, "I could beat him in under 3 minutes, but I'm going to blow him up and embarrass him. And you don't like bullies? Well, I'm the biggest bully around, and I'll treat you like a piece of crap. Still got it? You never had it." But I love him because he's one of the best promos in the company now, and English is his second language. But enough of me talking about how great Gunther is. Brian, tell me how great Gunther is.
I think he's been the highlight of Raw the last couple of weeks. You know, Liv Morgan, I think, has been the highlight of Raw, and that she got hurt. Gunther's promos, he may be the best promo all year. Not just this run, but if you really think about what he does, the issue, and I don't know if it's just because it's Goldberg and, you know, it's cool to boo, I guess, the old good guys. But I don't know if it would happen if he was against anybody right now. He's almost turning himself babyface by being the big bully badass that no one could beat up.
Well, and he's not really turning himself, because now he's messing with Seth too, and we'll get there in a second. But again, that's what I like about him is he's not a chicken shit heel. He's not a lying, sneaking, conniving. He's a proud, pompous, arrogant heel who's good enough to back it up, and you can go either way with that. And it still doesn't. Again, the thing I always talk about is I hate it when baby faces or heels do, especially baby faces, do things that they wouldn't do if they were who they are purported to be. It's out of character for them. It's bad booking to make them do or say things that you don't think that that personality would do or say. And Gunther doesn't do it. And, he ripped up Bill Goldberg. He's taken Bill Goldberg away from Bret Hart now. But he ripped him. He said he could beat him in under 3 minutes, but he's going to blow him up and embarrass him. And he's the biggest bully around, and he's going to treat him like a piece of crap.
And he's getting babyface pops for every one of these things that he says.
Well, because again, this is a newer generation, and they like the Bret Harts, and they like the legends that their favorite wrestlers look up to and like. But has anybody ever, my favorite wrestler was Goldberg in the business? It's not a tradition now that the modern fans have adopted. He was a huge name. He should get one last match on a, big stage and etc. But it's too long. He waited too long for the people really to be, oh, Goldberg is back. Oh, shit. And now it's, he's, like I said a week or so ago or whatever, he's kind of taken the place of, I think they wanted Gunther to beat Brock Lesnar. Because before Brock got in all that trouble, who's another smash mouth, physically dominant guy that Gunther could beat that would get him over in that way besides Brock Lesnar? It'd be Goldberg. There's nobody else on the list. So this serves a lot of purposes. But
on the other hand, if this is Goldberg's last match, and this is the build to Goldberg's last match, do you try to change anything if all of a sudden he's getting these big babyface reactions that Goldberg's a piece of crap and I'm going to kick the shit out of him?
No, I think they're going to have the same match probably regardless of who's cheering who, because it's going to be, I would think, a Paul Heyman type special where they bam, 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 and bam, and that's it. I don't think that Gunther is going to mat wrestle Goldberg for an extended period of time, and there's, it's probably not going to tease the time limit. But it doesn't matter because, and again, it's network TV. That's a better audience for Goldberg than the streaming. And he gets to wrestle one final match on network television in Atlanta and help another guy do some business in the future. He gets to wrestle for his kids. Gunther, everybody comes out better for it.
You think they're going to put Ventura on commentary for that match?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know whether I hope not for Goldberg's sake or whether I hope so for our entertainment's sake. Because who knows what could be said in that situation. But anyway, so Gunther finished with Goldberg and then he said, and then I'm going to be the one to say, who's next? And Seth's music plays and he gets a big pop, but he comes out with Paul and they take a long time to get in the ring and speak. And Seth was crowing about preventing Punk from being the champion over the weekend. But he said, when I won Money in the Bank, I said that it would be an assault on both titles. Well, congratulations, champ. And before they get a chance to say anything else, like Mussolini, but he got to leave the country. Here comes Punk, and he tackled Seth, and boom, 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 boom. And Seth runs out into the arena, and they're chanting CM Punk. And Punk sees that Seth ain't coming back, and he turns around to leave, and Gunther grabs his arm, like, hey, don't walk away from me. And Punk shoves Gunther down and storms out, and Gunther's like, well, I never. And then you see Seth standing in the bleachers, and suddenly LA Knight is behind him eating popcorn. This was the best segment of the show. And then he hit him with the popcorn, and they fight into the breezeway near the concession area in an obviously cleared and roped off area designed for their fight, with guards holding back multitudes of people that are standing out there for no reason. Did they advertise the fight in the concession area?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Why were all those people standing there? How did they know?
When LA Knight went up there to get his popcorn, he said, hey, gentlemen, please follow me. I want to make sure no fans are going to be hurt because I'm about to do something that I'm allowed to do because I'm a wrestler.
But I mean, seriously, I mean, I can see the school of thought that if there are people out there, it looks more legitimate, but it didn't look legitimate because of the way the people were arranged and then parted by barricades. But then if it doesn't look legitimate, then why have people there? Okay, to make noise, but then can't you make it any less obvious that, and again, what did they do? Did people just notice them roping off the entire concession stand and stand there to wait to see what was going to happen?
Yeah, maybe they thought Jey Uso was next. Actually, they've given you kind of they've given you something that makes sense as a plausible reason. They thought Jey Uso was about to come up there and yell at the camera and come out. He's done it plenty of times.
Yeah, he's about to come up there and yeet and go back to where he came from. You know, that's got to be a long round trip to leave the locker room, bypass the entrance to the arena, go all the way up into the top of the building, and then come back down to the ring when you were 50 feet away from it to begin with.
I guess so.
Think about that now.
It was nice to see that Punk came out to Cult of Personality. I thought he may come out to the Brenda Lee classic. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on now.
So sorry.
That I'm
such a fool. Keep going. You know the lyrics.
That I tweeted. I was gonna try to customize it, but that I tweeted you mean. All right. Well, speaking of mean tweets, let's get back to this.
Like
show.
Mussolini, if he was sorry. That works.
What was somebody on Twitter said? Like Mussolini in Italy, just like it's 1943. But anyway, we go back to the show. I know Bailey had a time limit draw with Lyric, and that I was sick of landing on the commercials. I would have watched the entire main event tag team match, Sami Zayn and Penta versus the Bronze, Breaker and Reed. But I didn't want to take any chances on hitting another commercial, so I went to the last 5 minutes to see the finish. Actually, the last 6 minutes or so. And I know they're trying to make a superstar out of Penta, and he sells merchandise. God, I hate to see him in with Braun Breaker because a lot of his shit looks phony, and it drags Braun down. And it's just the oddness of the timing and everything. But Sami made a comeback. They had some nice false finishes. Looked like it was a good match cooking. They had a big pop when Sami finally got a suplex on Bronson Reed. He had just a vertical suplex. But he had worked for it. He couldn't do it. He'd gone back to it. He couldn't. They milked it. And finally, when he got it, he got a big pop. But then as soon as he got up to go for the cover, he got speared by Braun Breaker, which, yeah, he suplexed Bronson Reed and got speared by Bronson Breaker. 1, 2, 3. It was a very nice finish. And then they speared Penta and went to splash Sami, but Jey Uso came out and beat the shit out of him with a chair. And the heels bailed and the crowd yeeted. But I like Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. That's a fucking team. And Braun Breaker it's not like you've got two big giant monsters because Braun can move to the point where you're not like, oh, this is two big guys doing splashes off the top. But at the same time, he's got the size. That's just me. And that's just Raw.
You know what I actually thought was really good on the show? I know you didn't watch it, so you can't really comment. And it pulled me in because it went so long that I was like, I should just watch it at this point to see what's happening here. Miro or Rusev versus Sheamus. I thought was really good.
And I'm sure it was. And if I cared really right now about either guy, I might have watched it too. If it was on real television. But that's it. In 2.5 hours, they had 4 matches. And not all of the matches were necessarily the can't miss type.
All right, friends, that was Raw. WWE Raw, early in Pittsburgh. Let's move on. Let's move far, far away from all this.
Far, far away.
Jim, let's get to some questions from the Cult of Cornette. This one was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Kyle Hansen. Would Roman Reigns move the needle for AEW like CM Punk did?
Well, yeah, hold on here. Would he move the needle? Yes. I mean, if Roman Reigns showed up on AEW, I think a lot of people would be paying attention to that, see what was going to go on. Would he move the needle like CM Punk did? At this point, I'm not saying he's necessarily a smaller star. I'm saying, is the needle capable of being moved as big as that now? Because when Punk got him over 1 million viewers, they were already at 800,000. And when, Punk drew a couple of $1 million gates, that was, out of the norm for them at the time, but they've raised the ticket prices now to where even though they have so many fewer people, they're still grossing money. So I don't know if it's possible. You would think that he would move the needle as possible as it is to be moved by anybody just for signing with the company, wouldn't you? But how much that would be debatable.
Yeah, and again, there's a few differences. Obviously, CM Punk going to AEW when he did is a little different than any top star going to AEW now. The company has been seen a little differently. They're rebuilding, if anything. CM Punk went to AEW as CM Punk. What would Roman Reigns be?
Oh, that's right. Roman Reigns couldn't go to Roman Reigns couldn't go to AEW. The guy could. And that's another thing. CM Punk came back from a long retirement from wrestling. Roman Reigns has not wrestled often, but he's still been around. And the thing is, then you'd have the problem. If Roman Reigns, regardless of what you called him, showed up tomorrow in AEW, who could he work with to draw money? He'd be in the same position as the Hurt Syndicate. There's no tag teams. It would be credible.
That's who we could work with.
Well, but they're set up as a tag team. That's point I'm making is you have almost nobody there that would be credible against a guy the level of Roman Reigns. And Moxley's their world champion. Can you see that match?
Well, actually, that's
Jesus
probably the
Christ.
one. Forget about the actual context and content of the match.
Well, that's right, because they're old compadres before Moxley flunked out of the big league. I
That's the biggest thing you could do probably right out of the gate before people see how stinky the match will be, is present the match.
But, I don't see how that with the structure, with everything that we know about AEW, that they can sign any. Of course, they're not going to sign Roman Reigns. It can't possibly. But I don't see who they could bring in that at this point would make anything but a short-term curiosity difference, because then they'll end up immaterial like everybody else they bring in. So, yeah, Roman Reigns as, somebody else, whatever name, Roman Snow, I don't know. He initially people would go, oh shit, what the fuck's going on here? But then he'd get lost in the shuffle and there'd be nothing interesting for him to do.
And I also think CM Punk was uniquely situated to be that guy for that audience. Again, not a lot of guys have a big hometown drawing ability.
Yeah.
What's Roman Reigns' hometown? San Jose? I don't even know. Does he draw really big there? Like Punk does in Chicago, where it becomes part of the story? Punk was a unique figure that worked perfectly for AEW at that point.
Well, plus Roman Reigns is a great promo, but Roman Reigns can't talk to people like Punk can.
Well, that's the other thing. And if he came out there without a manager. Yeah.
But that was a reason why Punk was perfect for the AEW audience, because he could communicate to the smart fans while still not coming out and making all wrestling bullshit. He was able to do it in the story.
Well, that answers that question. Jim, our next question was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Alexa Forrester. In Jon Moxley's book, He talks about JR giving a talk at FCW.
Wait a minute. He wrote one? I didn't know he'd ever read one.
He wrote one. Apparently, it's a real piece of work. He talks about JR giving a talk at FCW and recommending the boys have a backup plan in case wrestling didn't work out. Moxley didn't agree with this because, and there's a quote here,
I think if you really want something, whatever that is, you have to go for it with 100% of yourself. If you're going to go for it, go for it. Great things aren't achieved with a safety net in place. Safety nets, backup plans, these are distractions, excuses to give up early. A backup plan may be put in place for your benefit, but what it really serves is as a way out. If you want something bad enough, if you believe in yourself, failure can't be an option. The very concept that you may not succeed simply can't exist.
Oh, Christ.
Sounds like the Warrior. I'd love to know Jim's thoughts on this. Did he advise the developmental
He also
talent?
sounds like he's 14, doesn't he? Doesn't he sound like some kind of fucking wannabe teenager that's wants to be his favorite action movie star or badass video game character hero or something? You're a fucking idiot if you, especially for the audience that JR was speaking to, not just a bunch of guys who wanted to wrestle indies on the weekends and actually had some type of job or way to support themselves and pay their bills, but people in FCW who were apparently thinking of making this their living and doing this for real, in which case a lot of them weren't going to make it. And you know what? A lot of them didn't make it. So it's, him saying, don't let the wrestling business ruin your life because you've got no other option or you don't have any other plan or what would I do if this or whatever. He was trying to be nice to these people, but this fucking gelatinous headed moron is too wrapped up in the fantasy of who he thinks he is to fucking see that. And, I'm sure he's another one of these people that doesn't mind, I slept in my car. Well, good for you. I'm not going to sleep in a fucking car, asshole. I'm going to be a goddamn adult in a crazy business, but I'm not going to sleep in my car or stick myself in a sleeping bag on somebody's couch because I'm too much of a goddamn bum to be able to support myself.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
Well, let him go back to fucking Munchkin Land and be the Cabbage Patch Kid he wants to be. But JR was talking to aspiring professional athletes who may flunk out of the course. And Moxley's talking to a bunch of garbage championship wrestling wannabe dipshits who look just like him, a fucking corpse floating in a river for 3 days.
Well, let me just, the final part of this question here that was sent in by Alexa. I'd like to know Jim's thoughts on this. Did he advise the developmental talent in OVW to have a backup plan? Is this something you advise talent or, aspiring talent to have?
Well, I didn't. The first thing that I said to everybody when they came in the door was, God damn, I hope you got some options. Right? It wasn't And there was a number of people I suggested that they find new careers. Linda Miles, those Shane twins. I said, you people need to do something else. But that was after experiencing what they had to offer. But no, I would tell the guys, look, this is why we were trying to teach them how to be in a wrestling business. If you want to be in a wrestling business, pay your taxes. Yes, I sent memos out on paying taxes and circulated the name of an accountant here in town that they could potentially go to. And we talked to them about keeping their records. And we mentioned to them that, it's fucking showbiz. And you might not get to be the movie star or the rock star or whatever. But we're educating you and teaching you how to be in a wrestling business. And because you're here in Louisville, Either you're on contract and you're making enough to get by and you can concentrate on your studies, or you've already got a job and you're training and you're part-time. Nobody thought they were going to get fucking rich, but we were very clear with, the pitfalls that you can fall into in the business, and that, it ain't a sure thing. But I never would have coached anybody. No, don't consider that this is not going to work out, because it's probably not going to work out. You're deluding yourself. It doesn't mean you don't have to try your hardest or work for it. If you know the odds are against you ahead of time, maybe that gives you some, what's the word I'm searching for? Some encouragement. I'm going to climb this mountain. But you can't just be single-minded like, yes, this is going to fucking happen for sure, and I'm going to be an idiot and fall through furniture until I'm 50 or it does. That's not, no.
Yeah, sounds like a great book. But thank you for your question. Jim, our next question via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Cody McLemoyle.
Is he one of the Moyle? Is he the Moyle?
Not exactly sure how to pronounce this.
The Moyle cut my finger off.
All right, let's go to the Moyle's question. Cody the Moyle, that will be Cody's new gimmick. What is Jim's opinion of why Nathan Jones never worked out? Dealings with him, if any, in OVW? I can understand why he didn't pan out, but seeing how devastating that kick to Nunzio was makes me wonder. Thank you for all the content.
I don't remember seeing a kick to Nunzio. Nathan Jones, they may have sent him to OVW one time just to work out, but I never even used him on television, and I don't remember the first conversation I've had with him. But the deal was, a lot of people may not know or remember the name, but this was 25 years ago or whenever. He's this giant 7-foot guy. Where was he from? Australia? I believe he was.
Yeah, I think so.
And they signed him, and I think he never got it. It didn't work out. He wasn't real good. And then this might be a goddamn Google thing, but somehow they brought him back and booked him, and he wanted to quit, but he waited until they booked him on the tour of Australia. And then when he was home, he just said, fuck it, and left and never came back. And he's been in movies and had different parts and things. Was he in prison for a while? I haven't brushed up on my Nathan Jones.
According to Wikipedia here,
did he do a prison movie?
He's a pro wrestler. He's a mixed martial artist. He was a strongman after WWE. On December 6, 2003, Jones quit the company due to the rigor of WWE's heavy travel schedule while on tour in Perth, Australia.
There you go.
He worked he worked for TNA. He signed with TNA in 2008. But nerve damage caused by a cement truck hitting his left arm.
Jesus Christ.
Kept him sideways.
Wait a minute. It didn't hit the rest of him. It just boy, that cement truck just barely touched me with the left arm, thank goodness.
It kept him sidelined for the first 3 months. He never wrestled for the promotion.
That's right. I was there in 2009. I never saw him.
Following a segment on Good Morning Australia in which he lifted and pushed an ute down the street, UTE.
And a what?
Ute.
Were these two utes? What did he push to? Who did he push down the street?
It's an Australian abbreviation for a car. So he pushed a car down the street, and then he was in a Jackie Chan movie, First Strike. And then he was in a Brad Pitt movie, Troy. Nothing about being arrested here, though.
Okay, well, then he was in prison in a movie, I think, then. That's what it was. Yeah, didn't pan out. They said he was very odd.
Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by John Viviani. You spent a lot of time in the territories on the road. As a car enthusiast as well as a wrestling fan, I was wondering what car you and the Midnights used, or if there was a favorite type of car the boys in general like to rent or own.
Well, I've talked about earlier in the program some of the cars that I've had and we had. And no, our cars were always beat to shit because we're going up and down the roads in Louisiana or North Carolina or whatever. I'll tell you what, when we started working for Crockett and started flying more, the cars that we liked to rent in 85, 86, 87 that the Hertz company had, and I had the Hertz Gold card, they had these Mercuries and T-Birds that were turbos, and they were sporty little things. And we used to like to try to rent those whenever possible. Now, if it was Flair and the Horsemen or the big baby faces or whatever, they would always, rent a Lincoln Continental or something like that. But that was an upcharge, and it was harder to get availability. We would always be in the midnight, would always get the full-size 4-door. And again, with Hertz, that was usually the T-Birds or the Ford Taurus or something like that. And that's what we would rent. But no, Dennis Condrey at one point had his entire bank account in his driveway with his Corvette and the other, he liked cars, but we wouldn't take those things on the fucking road because it would beat him up. And me and Bobby always had whatever the cheapest thing was we could find that we could make the trips in. The Ford Taurus that I bought in 1990, I had that for 7 years until I got it for $12,000 from a car dealership over here in Shelbyville. And I had that for 7 years until I was in Connecticut, and it had like almost 300,000 miles on it. And Tony Rumble, his cousin, owned a Toyota dealership in Connecticut, and I got a Camry. Exciting times.
Sad ending to the story there, but thank you for the question. Was there a favorite?
No, go ahead. The Camry lasted even, it was up into, I think it was 265,000 or something like that. And then it was so beat up that I had it till I was in OVW. So we didn't auction it, but we raffled it off. People bought raffle tickets for $1, and I made 220 something bucks on it.
Beyond the Midnight Express, what was considered the best car just to handle the road and the miles that you wouldn't mind driving amongst the other wrestlers?
Well, I don't think it had anything to do with how it fucking handled on the road or drive the mileage or whatever. It had to do with how the guys liked it and how it looked. Because remember, everybody says when they do interviews about the old Crockett days that the parking lot there at the office on Briar Bend looked like a Mercedes and a BMW dealership.
But were they driving those to the shows, or were they just driving it? Was that their home car?
Yeah, a lot of them were driving them to the fucking shows. And Magnum and Dusty were coming back from Greenville in that fucking Porsche that was just, it was the most expensive kind of Porsche you could buy. And that's, and it didn't take water and slick roads well, unfortunately. But yeah, all those expensive fucking cars. Remember the time Flair wanted me to drive was it a Rolls Royce? What the fuck was it? No, it wasn't a Rolls Royce because it was a foreign car, but it was a $100,000 car in 1989. And he wanted me to drive it back from Atlanta to Charlotte for him because he was going to stay over and fly. I took it to a gas station on the outskirts of Atlanta to fill it up. And it took me 30 minutes to figure out how to open the goddamn thing to the gas compartment. Right? It was this thing back before it was a common thing. It had heated seats and individual air conditioning and all these bells and whistles. And I'm looking around in the goddamn glove compartment for the manual to try to find where the release is to open the goddamn gas thing. And I'm standing there at midnight on the outskirts of Atlanta off I-85 on the way to Charlotte it with $100,000 car, and I can't fucking figure out how to put the gas in it. People are looking at me. So they had all kinds of taste in cars. Well, mine, whatever was cheapest, I didn't care if people goddamn tarred and feathered it.
All right, Jim, our next question via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Eric Kelly. Did Jim ever consider using Ronnie P. Gossid in Smoky Mountain Wrestling he would have seemed like a good fit to me.
Well, there's a fat joke in there somewhere, but Ronnie's gone. So, no, I never did. I mean, to be honest, between me and Ron Wright and Tammy, I think we had the managers, buttoned up. And as much as I got a kick out of Ronnie, besides the fact that he lived I can't remember whether he was living in Memphis or Nashville in that last run that he had in the Memphis territory, but I didn't particularly want him to come over and just do TV and fucking major shows, and I wasn't going to pay him to come to the spot shows, and I would think that he'd have probably needed a good-sized fucking mulch trailer to travel around in at 500 pounds. I loved him. No, I'm not knocking him, but it wasn't really a thing that I pursued. I don't think that he would have made a big business difference, and I would have had to drag him over to Knoxville and pay him 15 times a month. So it wasn't a thing that was going to happen.
All right.
But he was entertaining around the boys too. And one time, where was it? Was it in Memphis or was it on some independent show? It was an independent show in Georgia. This was late 90s, one of the first independent shows probably I did. And I punched him and he took a bump, and I swear it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Because for people who haven't seen Ronnie P. Gossid, he literally was a human waterbed. He was 6 feet tall, but he weighed in a neighborhood of 500 pounds, and there was no weight to him. He was all like a big Pillsbury Doughboy marshmallow type of thing. And when I punched him in the chin, one of his chins, he threw his hands up and the arms up in the air, and he kind of kicked a leg out, and he kind of crumpled and went down and rolled. And I was like, what the fuck was that? But it was a 500-pound guy who was light on his feet to take a bump like that.
All right, Jim,
are you still there?
I am still here, and that was a good answer to the question. Ronnie P. Gossid and Smoky Mountain? No, but he took a funny bump. Now I wish I could see it. Jim, before we get to some songs and get out of here real quick, let me grab this. On the topic of retro wrestling figures, because we haven't done this in a little while, Hastel Toys, their Gimmicks and Grapplers and Gimmicks, line, has put out a few figures recently of some interesting gimmicks from the mid-90s in the WWF. Want to get your thoughts on them real quick. First figure here is a figure of Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Jean-Pierre Lafitte, with his finishing move, the Cannonball Clobber. What did you think of the repackaging of Pierre as Jean-Pierre Lafitte?
Well, they used that at some point, in between, what was it? In between, could have been in between the Mountie and what am I thinking of? Because he went through a couple of different gimmicks, but at that point, they wanted him to be a pirate, right?
Well, this is Pierre, who was in the Quebecers with Jacques Rougeau, and then he disappeared. He came back as a pirate, and then I don't think he came back again until he was in the Amazing French Canadians, maybe, in WCW.
But Pierre was a heck of a, and still, he's been working in recent years in TNA and other places, the monster gimmick, right? And he's, bless him, he takes wonderful bumps for his age, but he was a good talent, but I think he was easily led astray by, remember, I think the locker room had him convinced they were going to put the belt on him in Montreal, and he didn't want to do a job for fucking Nash and all this other stuff, and it led to ill will. But yes, Jean-Pierre Lafitte was going to be the pirate. He was, you know what? That's something you don't hear enough these days also, is about swashbucklers. Think about that. Used to be all the swashbucklers were the heroes, the Douglas Fairbanks seniors and the Tyrone Powers and the swashbucklers. It's a phrase you don't hear enough of these days, swashbuckling.
Was it as simple as he had one eye, so Vince is like, you must be a pirate?
I think so. Yeah, he was blind in one eye. So it did. But you know what? The thing is, they should have ribbed him and told him to wear the patch on the other eye just to change it up.
Jim, here's another interesting one. Of course, Savio Vega would become a popular wrestler in the WWF, and actually, I thought he was quite underrated. He had some good matches with Steve Austin and did some good stuff. But what about Quang? Quang, with his finishing move, the Orient Chop. What do you remember about the gimmick, the masked Quang?
Well, again, Savio was a hell of a worker. And Savio, that's when he was in TNA as an agent, it was because he had been an agent and booker and office personnel in Puerto Rico. He and Dutch knew each other well. And he, besides for his very strong accent, which was challenging at times to get to the bottom of it, shoot him, who's him? But he knew what he was doing. And I liked Savio Vega as a gimmick because he, like you said, had good matches with Austin, who wanted to work with him because he knew that Savio was helping him get over. The Quang thing was when they were just trying to find shit to do with him. And he did know some martial arts, but it was to me, a pale imitation of, do you remember the TNT gimmick and the videos they did?
My first exposure to him was seeing pictures of TNT in the magazines from Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico, his original gimmick, or the one he came to be known by first, was TNT. He was a masked wrestler, but he did martial arts, and they did a video of him, at least one I remember. It was so cool to where it looked like it was a Puerto Rican James Bond movie. And he was the secret, fucking martial arts agent going around fucking leaping over these cars and doing all this cool looking shit. And Quang was just kind of clang to me. But that was years later.
All right, Jim. Well, Pastel, with their grapplers and gimmicks, recently put out a line of Charles Wright toys, including, of course, Papa Shango, The Godfather. But what are your thoughts on Kama? Kama, the finishing move listed here, the Kama Crush, and it comes with a gold chain. What are your thoughts on Kama?
I think Kama should have been done away with, exclamation point. No, that was the thing is, and by the way, they should have come up, did they do Soul Taker?
They did not. They only did the WWF gimmicks. Or at least some of them, actually.
They ought to do his whole line. Think about this. You could keep a toy company busy for a year and a half if they did a figure of every one of Don Fargo's gimmicks. But no, with Papa Shango, under Kama, etc., the Kama thing just didn't work. The Godfather was the best because that was closest to the person. But Kama, Vince didn't understand that was the early days of UFC. They were trying to present him as some kind of MMA fighter, which he's a fighter, all right, but I don't know if the Gracie family has anything to worry about.
And there had just been a fighter that got a lot of attention called Chemo in the UFC. So it was right after Chemo, there was Kama.
Right, and Kama, Chemo, Uma, Oprah. But he was bland. It didn't, the outfit, it didn't fit Charles Wright. It didn't fit Bear. So I think the initial early, Papa Shango was all that showbiz bullshit and everything. And Kama was just there, but the Godfather finally blossomed. But Kama was not the jewel of his gimmick canon.
Other than the tattoos, you would have no idea it's the same guy as Papa Shango. And when you think about it, the Godfather looks nothing like Kama, and Kama looks nothing like Papa Shango. Soul Taker had facial hair and hair. So his look kept changing. But one final one here, Jim. A tag team set. Marty Jannetty and Al Snow, the New Rockers. With the Cassidy Crunch and, of course, the Rocker Dropper, the Chuck Austin special.
What the fuck? Why do they keep making up these names? Because these guys, they never won a match, so they didn't have a finish. But even with the guys that had finishes, they weren't clobbers and crunches. And that was at the time Al Snow had come into a lot of fanfare from myself, Jim Ross, other people that knew him. But he tried to do that springboard shit on real ropes instead of cables and fell the first time Vince saw him, and he was doomed from then on out. And they made him Avatar and all this other shit. And they were trying to figure out shit to do with him. And Jannetty was in pretty much the same situation. When Shawn Michaels had been at the Night of Legends in Knoxville for Smoky Mountain in August of 95, Jannetty was booked on the card against Al Snow in a Midwest title match. And Shawn and Marty hadn't seen each other in however many years at that point, but they got back together that night. Shawn put a word in for Marty and they rehired him, but then they didn't know what to do with him. So when they've got two guys they don't know what to do with, they made them a tag team. And because Al could do spots and was athletic, the new Rockers. Well, what do we call them? Again, it was a fucking... Vince didn't give a shit. Bruce is just trying to tickle him. What are we going to call Al? How about Al Snow? Well, no, the Rockers. So they came up with a compilation of two teeny bopper idols. This was 1997, and they went with Leif Garrett and Sean Cassidy. Leif Cassidy.
Not David Cassidy?
The Rockers. Not even David, but Sean.
All right. That's an interesting little twist there. Did Al Snow need to be goofy? Like, was that the only way Vince was going to put up with it? He wanted him to show personality and be a character there? Or if they had done the New Rockers as a serious thing without Leif Cassidy being a clown character?
Well, no, Vince never said be goofy, but would you put him in a goofy outfit with a goofy gimmick and send him out there to have goofy matches? Al started being goofy. Because he was like, well, what the fuck? I'll get noticed or fired, one or the other. But it was rotten. That was the babyface equivalent of the new Midnight Express. That was just fucking rotten. Fucking rotten.
Well, there it is, retro figures. We'll revisit this again in the future. But Jim, with that, the drive-thru has closed. All right.
Ding.
Ding dong. The show is over for today. We'll be back next week on the drive-thru and, of course, in a few days on the Jim Cornette Experience. A lot of things happening in wrestling. Hear all about them on the Experience and the drive-thru. Official clips on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Full episodes, clips of the episodes, omnibus collections, Travis Heckel artwork. Check it out today. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Don't forget, Patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to the archive going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
The same thing that was going on at the top of the program. Just send me money to JimCornette.com. I'll send you stuff in return. Go there, look at it now. It's phenomenal. And it's all guaranteed to be actually real.
At JimCornette.com. Of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen. Jim, anything you want to say to intro that great song?
Well, I'd like to say, play that music, and I'll tell you who it's about.
Call Stephen P. New. An outlaw mud show or two. He'll do the rest.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. 877-50-STEVE and newlawoffice.com is where you can go to get retribution, revenge, vengeance, and mayhem, and also potentially paid in a court of law. Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com.
That's right. Of course, the wrestling news each and every day, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Get your wrestling news, no paywall, no clickbait, just the actual news from the wrestling news. We'll be back next week on the drive-thru and, of course, in a few days on the Experience. For Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!